Chapter 652. Duju was already caught between a rock and a hard place. Right now, he had already used 80% of his strength, and it had already exceeded the limits of what he could control. However, it was still possible for him to forcefully retract his strength. He was also planning to forcefully retract his strength the moment something went wrong. At most, he would just suffer some damage to his vitality. But this stubborn boy was still gritting his teeth and holding on. This made Duju feel that he cherished his talent. As a young boy, Jun Moxie was probably the first one in history to be able to resist to this extent. If he increased his strength again, it would really be beyond his control. It was easy to release, but difficult to withdraw. If he was not careful, he was afraid that the young boy in front of him would suffer a terrible injury that he could never recover from. Moreover, it would leave a shadow in his mind that was similar to the devil in his heart, and he would never be able to make any progress. That would really be an irreconcilable hatred. Putting himself in Duju's shoes, if Duju had such an outstanding disciple but was forcefully turned into a cripple, he would also disregard everything to take revenge. Thinking of this, Duju had decided to stop. Since that master still doesn't show up, I will kidnap Wen Songyu and leave. I think he will know that I've been merciful when he comes back, so it should be no big deal. But at this moment, he heard Jun Moxie's extremely annoying words again. You really don't know what's good for you. I have been merciful from the beginning to the end. But you, a dead duck, not only are you stubborn, you even dare to mock me. Duju was furious, and subconsciously increased the power of the coercion directly to the peak. Everyone in the square suddenly felt their vision darken, and their feet shook. Even high platforms swayed a little. With the power of the aftermath, one could imagine the pressure that the people who took it all had to bear. An unprecedented majestic force instantly pressed down, and the Hongjun Pagoda swallowed it all. There was still more, like the continuous waves of the sea, and like the waves of the Yangtze River, each wave higher than the previous one. The Hongjun Pagoda was naturally not afraid of the incoming spiritual energy. In the most hospitable manner, it absorbed all the spiritual energy that had forcefully entered, not wasting a single bit. Jun Moxie felt as if his meridians were about to explode. It felt so good, so good. This continued for a moment. Suddenly, the pressure on his body lightened. Duju had suddenly cut off the source. Duju was infuriated by Jun Moxie to the point of exploding. But after he exploded, he suddenly regretted it. It's over. This kid was definitely finished. However, he had already mobilized the maximum amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy that he could bear. He had to vent it out, because even his body could not bear this wave of heaven and earth spiritual energy. After enduring the first wave with great difficulty, Duju hurriedly stopped, feeling an inexplicable sense of apprehension in his heart. However, Junimo Xie suddenly moved and slowly raised his head. His lips still had traces of teeth marks, and the corners of his eyes were twitching. His complexion was deathly pale, and his face was ashen. It was obvious that he had died and come back to life. But he was fine. He was fine. How could he be fine? How could this be possible? Duju stared at the little monster in front of him and was almost speechless from shock. Whether Jun Moxie was on the verge of collapse, Duju could not be sure. In any case, Duju himself was really on the verge of collapse. A 17 or 18-year-old boy had actually withstood the full power of a middle-level venerable combined with the pressure of heaven and earth spiritual energy. Who would believe such a thing if it was told to others? It was truly sensational. Was this kid a human or a ghost? Although Duju's face was as indifferent as before, his heart was already in turmoil. Indeed, a great teacher produces a great disciple. But such a talent was really too dangerous. Jun Moxie slowly raised his head and actually smiled. Venerable Du, why don't you let me have fun? I haven't had enough fun yet. Venerable Du's methods are powerful enough, but unfortunately, they don't last long enough, and I can't enjoy them to my heart's content. What's wrong with giving up halfway? His tone was filled with deep disappointment and dissatisfaction. He was like a resentful woman who was about to climax, but was poured down with a bucket of cold water. Very resentful. Heaven and earth could be his witness. When Jun Dashao said this, he was 100% sincere from the bottom of his heart. He really wanted to have fun for a while longer. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But in Du Ju's ears, it became the most vicious sarcasm. How could he get out of this situation? Du Ju's venomous, snake-like eyes stared fixedly at young Master Jun, not blinking for a moment. Suddenly, with a muffled snort, he raised his palm without even turning his head, slamming it down heavily onto the stage. A sharp whistling sound broke through the air. The next moment, Wen Sangyu, who was on the platform, felt as if his chest was smashed by a 10,000-pound sledgehammer. With a bang, he flew up with the wooden stake. His body cracked in midair, and then he split into countless pieces like a bomb and fell on the high platform. Under the high platform, there was blood and flesh on the ground. No one would ever recognize that the blood and flesh on the ground were once the elegant Wen Sangyu. The place where Du Ju hit was at least 300 feet away from Wen Sangyu. From such a long distance, even an ordinary archer might not be able to shoot from such a distance and with such accuracy. But Du Ju just raised his hand and smashed a living person into pieces with his air-splitting palm. The heartless venerable was indeed extraordinary. Du Ju turned around and didn't look at Zhu Moxie anymore. He closed his eyes slightly, and the people in front of him could clearly see an unprecedented, crazy killing intent in the heartless venerable's eyes. However, he tried his best to restrain himself. The palm just now more or less vented some of his crazy, killing intent. Tell you, Master, that Du Ju came to visit. It's a pity that we didn't have a chance to meet. If I have time in the future, I'll come again to learn from you. I've already dealt with the people from Jean City. Zhu Moxie, let me give you a piece of advice. It's better for young people to restrain themselves. After Du Ju finished speaking, he did not even turn his head and continued walking forward. Xiao Wei-cheng followed behind him, not saying a single word from start to end. The two of them floated out of the hall. Wherever he went, the crowd would part and make way for him involuntarily. The silhouettes of the two flashed and then disappeared. From the beginning to the end, Du Ju didn't look back because he was afraid that if he turned back, he wouldn't be able to control himself and would cripple Zhu Moxie on the spot or even kill him. Du Ju was sure that if Zhu Moxie continued to develop at this speed, then the title of the world's #1 expert, which had never appeared since the beginning of time, would belong to him. It was too dangerous to keep such a person with limitless potential alive, and moreover, he was an enemy. However, when it came to killing him, even the great Golden City couldn't bear the consequences. Not to mention the mysterious and powerful master behind Zhu Moxie. Just the Tian Fa forest alone was not something that the great Golden City could bear. Perhaps they really dared to besiege Venerable Mei. However, there was a precondition. Venerable Mei wasn't in the Tian Fa forest. If Venerable Mei stayed in the Tian Fa forest peacefully, who would dare to touch the tiger's whiskers? Not to mention the 10 great masters. Even if there were 100 times more of them, who would dare to do it? No matter how many people there were, as long as they entered the Tian Fa forest, even a top expert like Du Ju couldn't guarantee that they could come out alive. If Venerable Mei really mobilized the mystical beast to attack in a fit of rage, then Du Ju could be sure that no matter which family from the 3 Holy Lands, they would be razed to the ground in a day. Du Ju was well aware of the terror of Tian Fa. If a group of wild wolves was organized, they could fight against 1,000 soldiers, let alone the hundreds of millions of mystical beasts in the Tian Fa forest. King, he could mobilize all the power of Tian Fa. Zhu Moxie watched the two of them leave and almost couldn't help but pull Du Ju back. Damn, you're leaving just like that? Isn't that too irresponsible? But I haven't leveled up yet. As Du Ju stopped, the Hongjun Pagoda in Zhu Moxie's mind also stopped rotating, and it slowly descended in satisfaction. The benefits of Du Ju's forceful installation were not small. The heaven and earth spiritual energy mobilized by a venerable level expert was not a small amount. At the very least, when Jun Moxie circulated his cultivation, he found it difficult to absorb the heaven and earth spiritual energy. This also proved that Duju, the great venerable Du, had almost exhausted all the heaven and earth spiritual energy within a radius of tens of li. How much energy was this? It was too terrifying, especially that final full-strength compression. It was like a tsunami, forcefully squeezing all the heaven and earth spiritual energy into the Hongjun Pagoda. This gift could not be said to not be generous. If Duju used the heaven and earth spiritual energy to cultivate, he would only be able to use 1/10,000,000th of it at most. Mobilizing the heaven and earth spiritual energy was one thing, but directly turning it into one's own strength was another. Just like how we can use a knife to kill people, but we cannot turn the knife into a part of ourselves, this is the same logic. But facing a freak like Jun Moxie, it was a completely different matter. Not to mention that Duju had only mobilized the heaven and earth spiritual energy within a radius of tens of li. Even if he mobilized the entire world's heaven and earth spiritual energy, the Hongjun Pagoda would not refuse. It would still accept everything, and absolutely not a single drop would be wasted. The result of this force-feeding operation was that Jun Moxie's meridians were directly bursting to the brim. Jun Dashao, who had just broken through to the 4th level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, directly shot up like a rocket. It was as if a deity was supporting him, and with a whoosh, he directly reached the peak of the 4th level. A typical windfall, but such a good thing made Jun Moxie very angry. There was no way he could not be angry, because Jun Moxie had already felt that his Heaven's Fortune 4th level had reached the level where his meridians were bursting to the brim, which meant that the next step was to break through to the 5th level. But at this critical juncture, Duju had stopped his attack. What the F*** CK? Isn't he playing with me? Jun Dashao cursed in his heart, and for a moment, he was extremely disappointed. No matter what, you should let me break through before you leave. Now that I'm in the mood, you withdraw before the climax arrives. Be a good person to the end, and help the Buddha to the west. What's the matter with giving up halfway? This guy didn't even think that the heaven and earth spiritual energy that was forcibly instilled into him this time would directly give him a huge benefit. How could he not be satisfied? After all, they were enemies. Jun Moxie was furious. In such a mood, he didn't even notice the fact that when Sangyu was smashed by Duju's palm, all he could think of was, how can I get this old guy back and let him do it again? This young master, I like this kind of abuse so much, of course. Jun Moxie was very disappointed. The feeling of being interrupted when he was about to break through was indeed not a good one. But if Duju knew about this heartless venerable would probably force himself into a dead end in the blink of an eye, and he wouldn't live no matter what. So depressing. Chapter 653. Mayor Du, after meeting Jun Moxie today, what do you think of him? Xiao Weicheng asked cautiously as they walked. The information is wrong. Seriously distorted. Duju Lingling said. His body was moving very fast, but his voice was normal. In the previous information, it was said that Jun Moxie is just a young master of an aristocratic family. By chance, he became the disciple of a great master. Relying on his master as his backing, he is insufferably arrogant. It was said that he relied on his pretty face and flowery words to gain the favor of the venerable Mei. This is simply an additional 3 levels of scoundrel. Xiao Weicheng, after we go back this time, the intelligence department that you are in charge of must be reorganized. This is simply dereliction of duty to the extreme. This is intolerable. A cruel look appeared on Duju's face as he said heavily, Jun Mo Xie. This child's talent is unparalleled in this world. With his age and cultivation speed, even if he might not be able to last forever, it is definitely unprecedented. He is definitely a super genius that will not appear even in millions of years. But the intelligence department said that such a genius is useless. To a certain extent, it misled our actions and caused us to suffer a great loss. This is simply an unforgivable mistake. He paused, and his tone revealed a deep sense of fear. An 18-year-old boy can actually withstand my full power of spiritual power and not even suffer a serious injury. Jun Moxie's strength must at least be at the level of a superior supreme, or even higher. Xiao Weicheng, an 18-year-old superior supreme. Do you know what this means? In the past, when I heard of his master's vast divine power, I was still quite doubtful. I did not believe that there could be such a person in this world. Today, seeing the strength of his disciple, it is really unbelievable. With such a disciple, one can imagine the strength of his master. Previously, I still had a slight desire to win, but now that I think about it, I really overestimated myself. I have not stepped into the world for a long time, and have become a frog at the bottom of a well. Let's not talk about his master. Just based on that Jun Moxie alone, I believe that with just a little more time, he will be able to look down on his generation, and no one will be able to stand up to him. Xiao Weiqing took a deep breath. His expression was ugly, but he didn't say anything. Don't say that I'm exaggerating his abilities because I'm unable to subdue him. But do you know that ever since the Xian continent came into existence, there have been countless Xian cultivators, and there have been many legendary figures? But even the most outstanding genius in history was only the profound Saint Guanming from 3,000 years ago. He was a peerless genius who reached the level of Shun Xian at the age of 18. Apart from him, no one else, whether it was before or after him, had been able to surpass this age and level. But even with the peerless talent of a profound sage, advancing to the 5th layer of the Shun Xian realm, which is the so-called supreme realm, would have to be done after the age of 20. Du Zhu clenched his teeth and said, "But this Jun Moxie actually reached the superior supreme level at the age of 18. That's 8 levels higher than Guanming. What a terrifying thing this is. If we really let Jun Moxie grow up, even with the strength of the 3 holy lands, we may not be able to be in his eyes. At that time, the entire pugilistic world will belong to Jun Moxie alone." It's really that serious? Xiao Weiqing's eyes widened. After today's incident, Xiao Weiqing finally realized how terrifying Jun Moxie was. But he didn't expect it to be so serious. Just like what Du Zhu had said earlier, Xiao Weiqing really thought that Du Zhu was praising his master and disciple just to save face. At least, there was a reason behind it. Serious? That's serious? There's something even more serious. You haven't even realized it yet. Du Zhu said coldly, "Right now, the 3 holy lands and Venerable may have become sworn enemies. And Venerable May is Jun Moxie's woman. Don't tell me that Jun Moxie is a pretty boy and has a relationship with Venerable May. Because with Jun Moxie's potential, even if his partner is Venerable May, he may not be qualified. If the two of them are working together, it's still possible. But if it's really my judgment, it might be that Venerable May has borrowed a lot of benefits from Jun Moxie. If Tian Fa really appeared in the human world, their strength would be considerable, but it wouldn't be that scary. Because no matter how powerful Tian Fa is, they can't be compared to human Xian cultivators. But if she has a strong ally like Jun Moxie, and they work together, if we don't stop them, the 3 holy lands will be annihilated in no time. No man can tolerate other forces plotting against his woman, especially Jun Moxie, this unruly son. Based on Jun Moxie's cultivation progress, he has already reached the level of superior supreme at the age of 18. Then, it can be predicted that he will reach the level of venerable before the age of 20. Before the age of 25, he might surpass the level of venerable, or even higher, if we wait for him to live peacefully until the age of 30. Then, the 3 holy lands don't have to work hard anymore. They can just wait to be annihilated. In Du Zhu's voice, there was an obvious fear, a great fear. It can't be that fast, right? This is too unimaginable. Xiao Weicheng was still unconvinced. The process of accumulating Xianqi is not that easy. Even if it's just the accumulation of strength and the improvement of mental state, especially when it's above Shun Xian, there's always been a saying that Shun Xian is at the 12th grade. Every step is like ascending to the heavens. It's not something that could be achieved in 3 to 5 years. Do you think I don't understand what you're saying? But let me ask you, is it really impossible? Du Ju snorted. Xiao Weicheng, you are now at the level of Superior Supreme. 10th grade Xinxian, how old are you this year? I have experienced 178 winters and summers. Xiao Weicheng was startled and answered. That's right, it's not even 200 winters and summers. Considering your age, your progress can be said to be quite fast. Then think about it. How long have you been practicing Xianqi? Du Ju, Lang said. I started practicing Xianqi at the age of 3. I successfully broke through to the Silver Xian realm at the age of 9. At the age of 12, I rose to the Golden Xian realm. At the age of 16, I was already at the Earth Xian realm. At the age of 19, I reached the Tian Xian realm. At the age of 25, I reached the peak of Tian Xian realm. At the age of 30, I successfully broke through to the Shun Xian realm. At that time, I was the most outstanding one in the family. Xiao Weicheng revealed a look of nostalgia. At the age of 49, I broke through to the Supreme realm. Then, I continued to accumulate until I reached the level of Superior Supreme at the age of 90. After that, I spent close to 80 years to reach my current level. Recalling the past, Xiao Weicheng suddenly felt that the years were long, and he could not help but sigh in his heart. In other words, you can already be considered a genius in the eyes of ordinary people for your current achievements at the age of 178. Is that so? When you were 18, you were only at the Earth Xian realm, right? But you have practiced for 178 years, and you are only at the same level as the current Jun Moxie, and he is only 18 years old. If you are a genius, then what is Jun Moxie? Is there a problem with me saying that he is a peerless genius that has never been seen before? Du Ju snorted and asked, and on what basis do you think that with Jun Moxie's unprecedented advancement, why can't Jun Moxie reach the honorable realm before the age of 20? The current you, do you still dare to say such words? Xiao Weicheng's body trembled, and he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His mouth was agape, and he had an expression of extreme shock on his face. That's right, I wouldn't have known if I didn't compare myself to him. I only paid attention to Jun Moxie's arrogance and despotism, but I didn't pay attention to his demon-like talent. Back then, I was already a super genius that made my family ecstatic. My cultivation speed was also once regarded as a demon-like speed by everyone. But, compared to the current Jun Moxie, Xiao Weicheng suddenly felt sorrowful. Comparisons are odious. So, the gap between two people can actually be so big. Now, do you understand how scary Jun Moxie is? Du Ju Lang looked at him. Then, City Lord Du means. A ruthless look appeared in Xiao Weicheng's eyes. If that's the case, if this Jun Moxie continues like this, won't he become a hidden danger for our 3 holy lands? If it was possible, I would have killed him with my palm just now. There were even a few times when I wanted to make a move. But killing him so brazenly like this can't, absolutely can't. Du Ju said solemnly. Jun Moxie must die? There's no need to doubt this. We can also cause a dispute because of his death, but we can't let them know that it was us who did it. He frowned and looked into the distance, revealing a thoughtful look. Venerable Mei is one thing, but the more important thing is that master of Jun Moxie. Judging from Jun Moxie's master, if the disciple is already like this, how scary would his master be? Even our 3 holy lands are no match for this great enmity. Even if we can succeed, we'll have to pay a heavy price. Which side is he from? Could it be someone from the Misty Mansion? What we need to do now is to rush back to Gold City as soon as possible. Du Ju made a prompt decision. Order the intelligence department to increase their efforts and keep an eye on Jun Moxie's movements at all times. Do not let go of even the slightest bit of movement. We must gather the elite forces of the 3 holy lands to the Silver Blizzard City on the 2nd day of the 2nd month of spring. That will be the best opportunity to kill the Xian Beast Kings of Tian Fa. And it would also be the best opportunity to deal with Jun Moxie. After all, you must strike a fatal blow when dealing with an opponent like Jun Moxie. That's because he won't give his opponent a second chance to threaten his life. In addition, Jun Moxie and the Jun family are irreconcilable enemies with the Tianxiang imperial family. If possible, create some trouble for him in the secular world. Even if he doesn't have a weakness, we must create one. Restrain him. We can't let him develop too quickly. Focus on Jun Moxie himself. The strength of the rest of the Jun family may not be weak in the eyes of the secular world, but they're nothing in the eyes of our three holy lands. We may be able to restrain him, but we're only allowed to get rid of that thief Jun. It doesn't matter even if we ignore the rest of the Jun family. Once the time is ripe, be ready to strike like a thunderbolt. Xiao Weicheng didn't understand what he was talking about and could only nod in agreement. Chapter 654. The 9 consecutive days of death by 1,000 cuts finally came to an end. The Wu Hui army flag was once again standing proudly in the Tianxiang city, fluttering high in the sky. During these 9 days, the nobles and officials kept coming to the Jun family in waves, demanding that this unsightly show be stopped. Their reasons were endless, and every one of them was reasonable. However, Jun and Mo Xie firmly refused them all. You have 1,000 reasons, but I have a set of rules. Those who squeaked too much were directly put down and beaten up. If it did not stop, their legs were directly broken. In this world where the fist was the biggest reason, the fist was the best reason. What's more, if this little drama was dissuaded, then the real drama would not be staged. The so-called real drama was naturally the thing that Jun Moxie had promised to do. Complete the burial of Murong Xiao and Yi Gohan. Wasn't this decision even crazier? It could be said that it was the real craziness. The process of this drama was a classic, and it was wonderful from the beginning. The location of the mausoleum that Jun Moxie chose was the old site of the original Night Mansion. This place had been given to a minister by the emperor as a mansion, and it was not far from the palace. Jun Moxie did not spend much effort to buy this mansion and raze it to the ground. Jun Moxie's method was very simple and rough, and even a little overbearing. He just put 2 5 million silver notes in front of the official surname Gu, and then gave him 2 choices. First, take the money and find another place to live. Second, be raised and buried along with this mansion. Minister Gu, who had already left his post, was quite quick-witted. He didn't even bat an eyelid as he readily agreed and immediately started to move everything away. Speaking of which, the construction cost of his residence was at most 4 or 5 million taels of silver, and it was extremely difficult to cash in. Now, the other party had directly offered 10 million taels of silver, which was 10 million taels of silver in real money. He had made a huge profit. Besides, the things in the mansion could be moved away by himself, and he just had to buy another mansion. Why not? Besides, even the emperor had to give way to Jun Moxie now. He did not have 3 heads, so why should he fight with him? He was in the limelight, and in the future, he might be able to find a way out for his descendants. Such a favor was worth it no matter what. Therefore, Lord Gu was very happy. The relocation of such a large residence only took a total of less than 2 days. Just as official Gu moved away the last item and walked less than 10 meters out of the door, he suddenly heard a loud boom. Turning around, he was shocked to find that the row upon row of huge houses, a continuous stretch of hundreds of houses, had suddenly collapsed at the same time, turning into broken beams and broken walls. All that was left was a stretch of ruins. Cold sweat broke out all over Lord Gu's body. If he didn't move quickly, then in this ruin, thinking of this, Lord Gu didn't even turn his head back as he hurriedly left, leaving behind a body of cold sweat. At night, Jun Moxie came to this place. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer division guarded the place impenetrably. Jun Moxie wore a white robe and stood in the middle of the ruins. The night was boundless, and it looked somewhat hazy. Jun Moxie stood in the middle of the ruins, his face exceptionally solemn. The corpses of Yi Gohan and Murong Xiao, the pair of infatuated lovers, were in a huge bronze coffin behind him. Jun Mo Xie slowly stretched out both of his hands. His hands suddenly glowed with an earthen yellow radiance. He waved his hands lightly and wave them out. Under the illumination of this mysterious earthen yellow radiance, the broken walls and broken tiles were quickly turned into dust. The messy ground actually became smooth and flat in an instant. It was so bright that one could see one's reflection in it. Jun Moxie clasped his hands together and separated them again. In front of him, a tomb several feet deep suddenly appeared. The bronze coffins of Yigahan and Murong Xiao mysteriously floated up from the ground and slowly fell to the bottom of the tomb without a sound. Jun Moxie waved his hands, and the tomb instantly closed again. This pair of lovers were finally buried together in the same tomb. Finally, their long-cherished wish was fulfilled. May your souls go to the netherworld and reunite in Fengdu. Holding your hand, we will never abandon each other for 3 lifetimes. Jun Moxie still stood motionless. However, there was a huge stone tablet in front of him. It was like a tall tree that was growing at an extremely fast speed. It rose straight up to a height of 100 feet, square and huge. At the top, there was a dragon and a phoenix facing each other from a distance. The atmosphere was heavy and dignified. Between the dragon and phoenix, there were 3 majestic characters that stood hollowed out. Tomb of Lovers. Jun Moxie's body slowly floated in the air. His fingertips glowed with an earthy yellow brilliance. He pondered for a moment and suddenly waved with force. On the stone tablet, fine stone chips flew out continuously. A few lines of flamboyant calligraphy instantly appeared on the smooth surface of the tablet. On the upper left side, I do not regret my deep love in this life. I am willing to wander alone. If fate does not end in the next life, I would rather betray the heavens than betray you. In the middle, the tomb of Yigahan and Murong Xiao. On the lower right side, Jun Moxie felt the deep love of these two, so he specially set up this tablet. May these two, in the next life and the next for all eternity, grow old together and never be separated. In the sky, they can be lovebirds. On earth, they can be intertwined branches. There will always be an end to the sky and the earth, but this love will never end. This tomb is called the Tomb of Lovers, erected by Jun Moxie. If there are any offenders, 9 generations will be executed. Jun Moxie looked at the tall tombstone and said in a low voice, Yiguhan, Murong Xiao, I have fulfilled your wishes for you. No matter how bitter you were when you were alive, you are finally reunited after death. Since this tablet has my name on it, I will not let anyone disturb your peace. This is also the last thing I can do for you. Jun Moxie stood up and thought for a while. Then he placed 2 huge stone lions in front of the tomb. Then, with Jun Moxie's footsteps, stone steps appeared one by one in a steady but abrupt manner. Jun Moxie's right hand flickered with a lush green light, and the entire graveyard was suddenly covered with pine and cypress trees. It was lush and verdant, and the entire area was covered with pine and cypress trees. The tombstones of Yigahan and Murong Xiao were placed in the center. Jun Moxie looked back one last time and sighed. Then he bowed, mounted his horse, and left. The Tomb of Lovers. Just as Jun Moxie expected, the sudden appearance of this magical Tomb of Lovers caused an uproar on the second day of its completion. First, it was still a towering mansion yesterday, but today it had become a huge tomb with pine and cypress trees. This magical phenomenon naturally caused the people in the city to be inexplicably surprised. Secondly, it was because of the 2 names on the huge tombstone. Few people knew who Yigahan was, but everyone knew who Murong Xiao was. Wasn't that the name of the current empress? Why was she buried here? Moreover, she was married to someone else? What the hell was going on? In the palace, the emperor kicked over the stool with one leg and then fiercely threw all the things on the table onto the ground. Following that, he kicked the table, sending it flying. His eyes were red with anger as he roared loudly. Men, flatten this tomb of affection for me. Flatten it no matter what. What qualifications does this bastard Yigahan have? What qualifications does he have? Murong Xiao. Bitch. I want both of you to not be able to rest in peace even in death. Meet each other. I will definitely grind your corpses into ashes. One will be buried at the bottom of the vast ocean, and the other will be scattered on the peak of a towering mountain. You will never be able to meet each other again. Groups of royal guards whipped their horses and galloped through the streets to tear down this tomb of lovers. The tomb that was like a thorn in the emperor's flesh. These small fries were not worthy of being personally attended to by Jundashao. Of course, the people in charge of attending to these guards were not low-level either, because the people who received them were from the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. Based on the current strength of these people, any one of them was basically at Tian Xian's level. With such a lineup, how could they be low-level? One side insisted on tearing down the tomb, while the other side followed orders to defend it. In the center of Tianxiang City, there was no need to say anything. The result was obvious. Even the weakest member of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer was at the peak of the Earth Xian realm. Furthermore, there were 300 of them gathered together to form a large-scale battle formation. How could these ordinary soldiers be a match for them? There were not many peak Earth Xian experts in the entire Tianxiang Empire, not to mention the even stronger Tian Xian experts. Those with such skills would have already gone to the Jianghu or established their own sections. Who would be so bored as to waste their time in the army? Therefore, in just a short period of time, the ground was already littered with broken limbs. This was also thanks to Jun Moxie's order not to kill anyone. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer were cautious and held back. Therefore, there were no casualties. Even so, in just one morning, nearly 10,000 people were injured or disabled. This was a rather terrifying number. The emperor was not discouraged despite losing the first battle. The millions of soldiers of the Tianxiang Empire could not even flatten a small tomb. Even if the Jun family does not listen to my orders, what about the other families? Are they going to rebel with the Jun family? I don't believe it. It can't be that the other families are like the Jun family, who have the backing of a peerless expert. Everyone in the family is like Shen Xian, right? Then, he issued an edict for the Dugu family to send out their troops. However, old man Dugu, Zhong Heng, suddenly fell ill. It was said that he was already in a coma. It was simply incurable. He was only one more breath than a dead man. In such a situation, he naturally could not lead the troops. Moreover, it was not only old man Dugu Zonghang who fell ill. Even General Dugu Wu Di fell ill. Although it was not to the point of incurable, he was vomiting and having diarrhea. He could not get out of bed. As for going into battle, it was even worse. Chapter 655. The women of the Dugu family were extremely busy. It was said that nearly half of the physicians in the capital had been invited to the Dugu family. They were served with good food and drinks, and their diagnoses were getting more and more serious. From an outsider's point of view, the Dugu family would definitely have funerals tomorrow, and not just one or two, but more than 10. As soon as the report of sick leave was submitted, His Majesty the Emperor was furious on the spot. He almost fainted on the spot due to a heart attack. Then, Grand Preceptor Li claimed to be ill, admitting that he was old and frail, and that it was difficult for him to take on such a heavy responsibility. It was said that Master Meng had caught tetanus last night and really couldn't get up. In short, all the important ministers of the imperial court were bedridden this morning. According to the report, these people did not seem to be pretending, and they were really miserable. After the emperor was furious, he finally thought of one person, Murong Fengyan. This was his father-in-law. He was Murong Xiu's biological father. If he did not care, who would? Whether from an official's point of view, Murong Fengyan was the most suitable person to deal with this matter. But when Murong Fengyan received the news, his hands trembled, and he almost fell. Then he opened his eyes and shouted, Xiu is dead? When did this happen? Why didn't I know about this? Murong Fengyan immediately went to the palace to see the empress, and was told that the empress had gone out late at night 10 days ago and had not returned. Old Master Murong went directly to the emperor, full of bewilderment. In the end, he only received a series of hesitant and unclear explanations. The only thing that was clear was that the emperor wanted him to topple Murong Xiuxiu and Yi Guhan's graves first. Everything else could be discussed later. Jun family. Hearing the sounds of fighting coming from outside, Jun Wui shook his head and smiled bitterly. Xie, you've crossed the line this time. Aren't you a little too much? Jun Xie, who was reading the classic of mountains and seas with great interest, flipped a page and casually said, "Is it out of line? Is it too much? I don't think so. This is a well-prepared deterrence. If there wasn't so much blood spilled, there would still be people who would go and destroy it. Make a scene, the bigger the better. It's just a few more people dying." Tian Guanlin had over 100,000 people lying there unjustly. How many people had died in Tianxiang City? Far from it. Grandpa Jun, who was half reclining on his armchair, sighed and did not say anything. At this moment, a guard suddenly reported, "The Murong family's patriarch, Murong Fengyun, is here to see Old Master Jun. The main character is finally here." Jun Moxie and Jun Wui said at the same time. "Jun Tian, this old man wants an explanation from you." Murong Fengyun stormed in and said, "Old man, I understand that you want to take revenge for your son, so I didn't make things difficult for you. But your Jun family has been making a ruckus for 9 days now, and all the murderers have been put to death. So, you should have had enough by now, right? Even if it's not enough, you can continue messing around. Why do you have to ruin my daughter's reputation? After all, Xiuxiu is the queen of a country, the mother of the world. How can she be humiliated like this?" "Humiliation? Old man Murong, why do you say that?" Jun Tian said calmly. "Fine. I only ask you, my daughter. My daughter. Xiuxiu, is she dead? Is her body buried in the grave of passion?" Murong Fengyun's eyes were red. Although he was a hero, he was still father. His own daughter's fate was unknown, but someone had erected a tombstone. How could he not be angry? How could he not be sad? "Yes." Jun Moxie interrupted calmly. "Old Master Murong, your daughter was indeed killed outside the Jun residence 10 days ago. My third uncle and I saw it with our own eyes. She's really dead. Xiuxiu." Murong Fengyun's body trembled, and he suddenly roared. "How did she die? Who? Who killed her?" The old man's voice was hoarse, as if his throat was torn. "The person who killed her was one of the people I killed with 1,000 cuts," Chu Feng said. Jun Xie said slowly, "You should know this person. I'm sure you are not unfamiliar with him. He is Mr. Wen Sangyu. Wen Sangyu. It's him? How could it be him?" Murong Fengyun's eyes flashed, and his face turned pale. His tall and straight body could not stand steadily, and he slowly sat down. He did not notice that there was no chair behind him, and sat directly on the ground. Hearing this name, he could guess how Murong Xiuxiu died, and who was the mastermind behind it. This was a matter that was completely obvious. Impossible. How could it be him? Murong Fengyun raised his head ferociously and roared hysterically, "You lied to me! Is it impossible?" Princess Raimu saw the assassination with her own eyes. At this moment, she is still in a coma, recuperating from her injuries in my residence. There were also more than 100 guards who protected the Murong clan lady that night. Even though many of them had died while they were trying to save her, nearly half of them were lucky enough to survive. They are still here. They are all soldiers of the Murong family. Can their testimonies be counted? If you still have any doubts, there are also Lord Divine Eagle, Solitary Eagle, and Fierce Gale Sword God, Feng Wanyin. Jun Xie replied calmly, "If Old Master Murong feels that it is necessary, you can ask them to come out and speak. Old Master Murong will believe their words, right?" Murong Fengyun's face was dull, and he was about to go crazy. He could also hear that Jun Xie had addressed his daughter as Miss Murong and not Her Majesty the Empress. He could also guess the reason behind it. After asking everyone, he finally accepted the fact that his daughter was dead. In an instant, he seemed to have aged more than 10 years, and tears flowed down his cheeks. His son-in-law sent someone to kill his daughter. When this cruel reality was placed right in front of him, the old man immediately broke down. But My daughter is the empress. Why did she have to be buried with that lowly Yi Gahan? Murong Fengyun suddenly shouted in grief and jumped up. Lowly? Master Murong, have you ever asked your own daughter about this? Did you ever ask her if she wanted to stay in the imperial palace and be the empress of the world? Or would she rather follow Yi Guhan to the ends of the world? The corners of Jun Mo Xie's mouth curled into a mocking smile. Do you know who your daughter likes? Master Murong, if you didn't mention this, I wouldn't have mentioned it either. But now that you mention it, it makes me look down on you. I look down on you from the bottom of my heart. Murong Fengyun sat down dejectedly. He suddenly remembered his docile daughter holding a knife to her own neck and the bright blood stain. Father, please help me. I'm willing to follow little Han. Even if I have to live in the wilderness, wander the world, I have no regrets. Please fulfill your daughter's wish. That crazy look in her eyes, that stubborn love, was still fresh in his mind, but his daughter was no longer in this world. Daughter, our Murong family is at the end of our rope. Fortunately, His Majesty has taken a liking to you. This is the only chance for the thousands of people in our family to make a comeback. Your father is old, and I don't have the heart to support the entire family. Your elder brothers are in their prime, and your younger brothers are still young. Do you really have the heart to follow Yi Guhan and let the entire family be destroyed? Do you really want your family to be beheaded? Help me, help your brothers, and help the entire Murong family. That was what he had told his daughter in the past. His daughter did not know that the Murong family was already deeply rooted at that time. There was no such thing as a crisis. But she, who was naive, chose to believe in her father. In the end, she let go of the knife in her hand. Even if I know that you're lying to me, I can't take this risk. I can't bear to part with this family. I've accepted my fate. These were his daughter's words at that time. To this day, he could still remember how his daughter cried for several months after that incident. That pitiful cry seemed to have pierced into his heart when he thought about it now. Before she got married, her face was filled with despair, and her dispirited expression was like dead ashes. The only dowry she brought with her was that handkerchief. It was him who broke up his daughter's beautiful marriage with one hand and pushed his daughter into that cold palace with the other. He thought that he had found the best home for his daughter because of this, but in the end, it led to the tragedy of her life. Murong Fengyun sat on the ground and suddenly burst into tears. In front of his eyes, amidst the glistening tears, it seemed like his daughter was still wailing, crying her heart out as she hugged her leg. Daddy, please let me and Lil Han be together. Please let me and Lil Han be together. He remembered that it was also winter at that time. He was wearing thick clothes, but his daughter's tears had soaked his pants and made him feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. He remembered that his daughter had not smiled in the past few years. She would often stare blankly at a certain place. She would occasionally come home, but she would come and go in a hurry. It was as if there was only endless pressure in the house. It was Miss Murong Xiao's last wish to be buried together with Yi Gahan. Do you want to destroy her last wish as well? Jun Moxie Lingling's voice came. The Murong family has used her for a lifetime. She had been used in exchange for countless riches and glory, in exchange for everything that others could never obtain in a lifetime. Now that she's dead, Master Murong, don't tell me that you still want her to marry the person who killed her with his own hands? Murong Fengyun raised his head in shock. In his tears, he seemed to see his daughter in a red wedding dress shouting, "Father, please let me go. Father, please let me go." He closed his eyes, and 2 streams of tears rolled down his cheeks. Master Murong absent-mindedly left the Jun residence, completely at a loss. He had no idea where he was going. Suddenly, he heard shouts in front of him. He walked over and found that he had inadvertently arrived at the grave of the lovers. This is the resting place of my daughter." He urged his horse forward with a blank look in his eyes. When the soldiers saw Murong Fengyun, they all made way for him. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer soldiers guarding the grave were about to stop him when a voice said, "Let him pass." Chapter 656. Murong Fengyun arrived in front of the tombstone and got off his horse, but he staggered. Looking at the towering tombstone, he saw the words on it through his blurry eyes. I don't regret my deep love in this life. I'm willing to wander alone. If fate does not end in my next life, I would rather betray the heavens than betray you. Xiao Xiao, my dear daughter, are you really going to die? Murong Fengyun stood there, motionless. His white beard fluttered in the cold wind, and his tears fell to the ground. He just stood there, his right hand gently stroking the tombstone, as if he was comforting his young daughter. In front of the tomb, the fighting stopped, and all eyes were on him. Suddenly, Murong Fengyun roared, Xiao Xiao, if you die like this, how do you expect me to live? His voice was filled with pain and intense pity, as if his own daughter was standing in front of him again. She was still the same as she was 18 years ago, still looking at him with such a pitiful expression. He sighed and suddenly reached out his hand. Dark blue Tian Xin Chi came out, and as his hand fell, stone chips flew. On the side, there was another line of small words. My beloved daughter, Murong Xiao Xiao, rests here forever. Father, Murong Fengyun, stands. Then he stared blankly for a long time, and finally sobbed. He covered his withered face with both hands, jumped on his horse, and left. He lay on the horse's back, and never looked back again. This stubborn old man did it in the end. Even though he did not recognize Yi Gahan as his son-in-law, he still broke off his daughter's engagement. He did not recognize his daughter's empress position anymore. He only erected a tombstone for his daughter. The cold wind blew, and the pines rustled like the sea. It seemed like Murong Xiao Xiao was saying her final farewell to her father. After Murong Fengyun returned home, he immediately issued an order. All officials in the Murong family were to resign immediately. From now on, the Murong family would have nothing to do with the world's disputes and power struggles. Anyone who disobeyed would be beaten 80 times and expelled from the family. However, Murong Fengyun's edition meant that Murong Fengyun and the Murong clan had acknowledged this grave. It acknowledged the existence of this tombstone. He had accepted this seemingly absurd fact. The remaining imperial guards quietly withdrew, because if they didn't leave now, they would have to face death and slaughter. Jun Moxie announced that from this moment on, there would be no mercy. From then on, the Grave of Passion became a major attraction of Tianxiang City. From this moment on, the huge tombstone would stand tall for 10,000 years. The evil monarch had personally established it. Even after 10,000 years, no one would dare to touch it. This also became a great miracle left by the evil monarch in the human world thousands of years later. Because the whole graveyard and the tombstone were completed in an instant by evil Prince Jun Moxie alone. Tens of thousands of years later, the continent produced many experts, but no one was able to achieve such a legendary feat. Ordinary people came here to pay homage, but the experts came here and all of them were amazed, guessing how the evil monarch had done all of this. This had already surpassed what people could do, or even the greatest scope of guesses. Not long after the battle, someone set up another tombstone next to it, which detailed the life course of Yi Gahan and Murong Xiao Xiao, as well as their earth-shattering love. The Grave of Passion made countless lovers shed tears in front of this tombstone. Some young men and women in the future would come here every time it was time to talk about marriage. They prayed that this pair of lovers could fulfill their marriage, and hoped that their feelings could be like theirs, unchanging in life and death. Never changing, Tianxiang City was in turmoil, and the entire Xianxian continent was also in turmoil. In the far north, in the blizzard Silver City, where another superfamily was located, his heart was filled with anxiety. Xiao Xingyan looked at the snowflakes of information in front of him and sighed helplessly. He regretted that he didn't kill them all those years ago, causing him to attract such a disaster today. How could they resist the power of the Jun family? The mysterious expert had caused a total of 90 experts from the 3 Holy Lands to be defeated in one fell swoop. The number 1 king of Tian Fa, Venerable Mei, turned out to be that little bastard Jun Moxie's woman. All these ridiculous things had happened to Jun Mo Xie, and no one dared to believe it. But they had no choice but to believe it. and the letters he wrote to the 3 Holy Lands asking for help had not received any reply. As for the people he sent, there was no news either. Xiao Xingyin hadn't been able to eat or sleep well these past few days. Don't tell me that my Xiao family is so close to unifying the Silver Blizzard City. Is it going to be destroyed? Han Zhanming, the Lord of the Blizzard Silver City, had been asking about the whereabouts of the group of people who had gone out. After all, it was too outrageous that they did not return to the Blizzard Silver City for the new year, especially when the little princess, Han Yanming, was among them. Although there were messages from the fake Third Elder and the others, Han Zhanming still felt that something was wrong. What could be more important than returning to the mountain for the new year? Moreover, little Ming had been gone for so long. How could she not miss her parents when she was so attached to them? How could she stay outside for so long? It was the new year. Even her father, who had been in seclusion for a long time, had come out. But he kept saying that he was busy and could not come back, and that he would only be back in spring. Could it be that something went wrong somewhere? Also, the Jun family said that they were coming to take revenge on the Xiao family. Was this true? In short, during this period of time, the atmosphere in the Silver City was not right. So during this period of time, Han Zhanming had been visiting the intelligence department a lot more often, which made the Xiao family even more fearful. They were afraid that Han Zhanming would discover something, and that would be terrible. Now was not the time when they wanted to exterminate the entire Han family. Facing a strong enemy like the Jun family and Jun Moxie, it was always good to have a little more help, not to mention a strong ally like the Han family. Today, Han Zhanming came again, because he suddenly had doubts about the intelligence office of the Xiao family. Even if he was really busy, his youngest daughter should have written a letter back. Ever since she left, little Ming had only sent a letter twice, and since then, there was no news from her. No matter how busy she was, she should have time to write a letter, right? Besides, no matter how busy she was, could she be busy? Everything was strange. Great Elder, you are here too. Is there any news recently? Han Zhanming's handsome face was expressionless as he greeted him lightly. My lord. Xiao Xingyin straightened his back. Although he was over 100 years old, he was still tall and straight. His eyebrows were sharp, and his face was devoid of wrinkles. If it were not for his white hair, others would have thought that he was a handsome man in his 30s or 40s. The recent news is not good for our Blizzard Silver City. Xiao Xingyin sighed. The Jun family is coming aggressively. It seems that they are confident. Our Silver City is on the brink of crisis. Oh, it's still about the Jun family? Han Zhanming frowned, feeling a little impatient. You know what I'm asking about, but you're using the Jun family to brush me off. Besides, the Jun family is looking for revenge against the Xiao family. What does it have to do with the Blizzard Silver City? That's right. The Jun family has the support of the Beast Kings of Tian Fa this time. Xiao Xingyin looked up to the sky and sighed. My lord, it seems that we are going to face a tough battle this time. We must be fully prepared. Han Zhanming interrupted him and asked, Has there been any news from the Third Elder in the past 2 days? Xiao Xingyin smiled and said, My lord, you came at the right time. The Third Elder's letter just arrived. Everyone has been working hard, especially the little princess. She complained in the letter that she needs to come back soon. I estimate that she will be back in 10 or 20 days at most. Let me see it. Han Zhanming was excited. Han Zhanming looked at the letter, which had almost 1,000 words and took 7 or 8 pages. He flipped through the pages one by one until he saw his daughter's message. It was not written by her, but by someone else. She said that the little princess was very naughty and homesick, and that she missed her parents. She even cried one night. The subordinates were in fear and trepidation, and were trying their best to resolve this matter as soon as possible and return to the Blizzard Silver City. Han Zhanming's doubts did not disappear after he finished reading. Instead, they increased. Something was not right. If she could write 1,000 words in 7 or 8 pages, why couldn't Ming insert a page and write it herself? Why did she have to let someone else write for her? She kept saying that she missed the Blizzard Silver City and wanted to return, but she delayed it for several months. The elders of the Blizzard Silver City had always been swift and decisive in their work. When had they ever delayed things like this? According to the letter, there were no casualties among the subordinates of the Blizzard Silver City. That was even more wrong. Since it could cause such a big problem, how could there be no casualties? Wasn't it too smooth? If it was so smooth, why didn't they deal with it for a long time and didn't return? Han Jianming was silent for a long time after he finished reading the letter. However, he gradually tightened his grip on the letter until his knuckles turned white. The ominous premonition that had been lingering in his heart for a long time suddenly became stronger and stronger. He stood quietly for a long time before he slowly said, "Great Elder, what do you think of this news?" His back was facing Xiao Xingyun when he said this. His tone was flat and even carried a hint of a smile. It was as if he was chatting peacefully and peacefully. I also feel that something is not right. However, as long as there are no casualties, it's a good thing. It's possible that they only report the good news and not the bad news. Xiao Xingyun frowned and thought deeply. Xiao Xingyun frowned as he pondered deeply. He then said, "However, many people have gone out this time. Their strength is also considerable, but they haven't returned even after such a long time. It seems that the difficulties they've encountered aren't as simple as they've been described in the letter. This is inevitable. This old man is also somewhat suspicious, or perhaps they're trapped by worldly forces and are afraid of losing face. If you put it this way, it makes some sense. But how could Meng I not have sent back any news? What is the reason for this?" Han Jianming's doubts were slightly reduced when he heard this. Could it be like this? Xiao Xingyun suddenly slapped his thigh as if he had suddenly realized something. Then he stammered and found it difficult to speak. "Like this? What? What did you think of?" Han Jianming turned around and looked at Xiao Xingyun sternly with his sharp eyes. This old man is just guessing. After all, there's no news from the little princess, and it's the end of the year. This is really abnormal. Xiao Xingyun looked embarrassed. "What did you think of? Tell me quickly." Han Jianming was a little annoyed and waved his sleeves heavily. Chapter 657. Xiao Xingyun was a sly old fox. How could he not see that Han Jianming was suspicious of the Xiao family? He had been thinking about how to solve this problem for the past few days, but he had not come up with a good idea. Now that he was forced by Han Jianming, he had a sudden inspiration and came up with such a reason. It had to be said that this reason was quite reliable. After all, there was a precedent. Han Jianming was stunned and frowned. After a long time, he said, "If that's the case, Great Elder, please pay more attention to the news. If there are any abnormalities, please report to me immediately." With that, he walked out with a heavy heart. In his heart, he was thinking, do both of my daughters have to walk this path? Looking up at the misty, snow mountain sword peak, Han Jianming's heart was in turmoil. His eldest daughter, Yin Yao, was still in seclusion up there. It was a punishment, but it was also her own choice. It had been nearly 10 years now. Han Jianming let out a long sigh, and his eyes flashed with pain. Suddenly, he flew towards the sword peak. However, he didn't notice that Xiao Xingyun's sinister eyes had quietly flashed with a trace of a relieved smile. I finally managed to deal with it for the time being. Sword Peak. This was the key to the oath that the Dongfang family was forced to make. The Sword Peak collapsed. All the Xian beasts came out of Tian Fa. This was the highest peak of the snow mountain. The whole mountain was shaped like a huge sword, piercing straight into the clouds. The lower part of the mountain was round, and the upper part gradually shrank. On both sides of the mountain, there were 2 mountain ridges protruding, like the 2 handguards of the sword. Above, it was a tall and straight mountain, piercing into the depths of the sky, straight into the clouds. This towering mountain at the top of the snow mountain was majestic and steep and covered a radius of dozens of miles. When it came to collapsing the Sword Peak and the snow mountain, this was an almost impossible task. How could such a majestic mountain collapse just like that? Han Jianming could not help but think of that battle and that oath. He could not help but feel sad for the Dongfang family from the bottom of his heart. Such an outstanding assassin family was sealed in this remote and desolate place for all eternity by a vow. Furthermore, he had no hope of making a comeback. How could he not be sad? According to altitude sickness, the higher one went, the more difficult it would be to breathe. This was because the higher the altitude, the thinner the air would be. This was especially true in this place. If an ordinary person came here, they would be in danger of suffocating at any time. But for these experts who were familiar with the climate of the plateau, it was not a problem at all. On the contrary, the higher one was, the denser the spiritual chi of heaven and earth would be. This was greatly beneficial to the cultivation of Shin techniques. Snowflakes fluttered in the air. This was the case at the top of the snow-capped peak. It snowed all year round. This also caused some strange phenomena. For example, some of the mountains were hundreds of feet tall, but they were not actually that tall. Most of them were formed by the accumulation of ice and snow over the years. If there was high temperature, it was very likely that the ice and snow would turn into a gurgling stream in a few days. However, in such a snowy world, how could there be high temperature? Han Yin Yao Seclusion Cave was already very close to the top of the mountain. The temperature there was even colder, almost double the temperature at the bottom of the snow-capped peak. But if one were to practice here, it would be more efficient. For generations, there were many outstanding disciples of the Silver City who had secluded themselves here. But the longest period of seclusion was no more than 3 years. Most of them could only last for 3 to 5 months. This was because humans were social animals. If they were to live alone, 1 or 2 days might not be a big deal. But if they were to be separated from the group for a long period of time, no one would be able to stand it. That loneliness and boredom could drive people crazy. Especially in the last few hundred years, this place had gradually become a place where they were punished to face the wall. But Han Yin Yao had already been in seclusion here for over 10 years. Even Han Zhanmeng, as her father, could not imagine how his daughter had endured these 10 years. The madam and the great elder had tried countless times to get her to come down, but she had always refused. She refused to give a reason. Han Zhanmeng sighed softly. Looking at the cold, dark cave, he finally stepped in. Inside the cave, not only was it not warmer than outside the cave, it seemed to be even colder. As far as the eyes could see, it was an illusion of ice and snow. There were ice pillars and walls that were as smooth as jade everywhere. There were no mirrors, no combs, no tassel-embroidered tent, and no soft bedding. As far as the eyes could see, there was nothing that could be called enjoyment. Even the basic daily necessities were hard to find. Was this really a girl's residence? Inside the cave, on the only ice jade platform in the center, a woman in white with black hair trailing over her shoulders sat cross-legged. Her eyes were slightly closed, and her hands were quietly placed in front of her abdomen, as if she was silently practicing. There was no sadness or joy on her tranquil face, only tranquility. It was as if her whole body had melted into the ice cave, almost like she was not a living person. Han Zhanmeng felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. Was this still the daughter who hugged his leg and begged him to tell her stories? Was this still the same carefree daughter who ran around with a face full of smiles? How could she become like this now? Yaoer! Han Zhanmeng's heart was filled with mixed feelings, and he finally called out softly. On the jade platform, Han Yin Yao suddenly heard the voice and opened her eyes slightly. Unexpectedly, her father appeared in front of her. There was a rare trace of warmth in her calm eyes, but there was still no change in her expression. "Father, it's you." Living alone on the icy peak all year round and suffering in her heart caused her to be unable to smile. She didn't even speak much. At this moment, she had become like the snow peak that had existed for thousands of years. She refused to melt. It was rare to melt. Perhaps, in this world, except for that person, there was no one else who could make her smile. Facing his eldest daughter, Han Zhanmeng felt speechless for a moment. The alienation and unfamiliarity that his daughter exuded made his heart ache for a moment, and he was speechless. After a long time, Han Yin Yao finally took the initiative to ask, "Father, why are you here today?" Several thoughts went through Han Zhanmeng's mind. but he suppressed them and changed the topic. Yao, there's one thing that I still don't understand. It has been a whole 10 years, and until today my doubts have not been solved. Today, I came up to have a good talk with you. Han Yin Yao raised her eyebrows slightly in surprise. Please enlighten me, father. When you went down the mountain, you saw the third son of the Jun family, Jun Wui, and fell in love at first sight. Afterwards, I went down the mountain to see Jun Wui and to see him. In all fairness, he is indeed a good man and can be regarded as an outstanding talent. However, in my opinion, no matter in which aspect, he is not as good as Xiao Han. I still don't understand why you made such a decision. Could it be that Jun Wu Yi is truly extraordinary? Could it be that I, your father, was mistaken? Han Zhanming said that this question had been bothering him for a whole 10 years, and it was not wrong. But the biggest reason he brought it up today was because of the great elder speculation. If the great elder speculation was true, would both his daughters have the same fate? Hearing the words Jun Wui, Han Yin Yao's eyes flashed, and a hint of softness appeared in them. Even the cold expression on her face seemed to melt a little, but it quickly disappeared. She said lightly, Father, is this why you don't understand? I thought you already knew about it. What do you mean? Han Zhanming frowned. In the past, Jun Wui was not as handsome as Xiao Han, nor was he as considerate as Xiao Han, who deliberately flattered his daughter. In terms of Xian cultivation, he was far behind Xiao Han. In terms of family background, one was a secular official, while the other was from a super family. The difference was like heaven and earth, and there was no room for comparison. I believe that Jun Wu Yi is nothing in comparison to Xiao Han in most people's eyes. He doesn't have any redeeming qualities, Han Yin Yao said indifferently. If you understand this, then why did you? Han Zhanming did not expect to hear such words from his daughter. He thought that she would praise Jun Wui greatly, and that he would surpass Xiao Han in every aspect. Unexpectedly, what came out of his daughter's mouth was very different from what he had imagined. Yes, in terms of external conditions, Jun Wui is indeed not as good as Xiao Han. This is also why I said that in the eyes of most people, Xiao Han is better than Jun Wui. But unintentionally, he made me feel that this is a person, and a man at that. Han Yin Yao's cold eyes shone with a blazing flame. At that time, his Xian cultivation was not high, but he often helped people and did not seek fame or fortune. He was upright, and had an awe-inspiring character. Although he was not good-looking, his heart was as broad as the sea, and he had the spirit of a man. His family may be ordinary in our eyes, but in Tianxiang, it could be considered one of the best. But he did not have the slightest bit of extravagance, nor did he use his power to bully others. He shed his blood for his country and ideals, and at a young age, he was already a blood general, serving the country and its people, and had an illustrious reputation. All of these were his strengths. Based on what his father knew, could Xiao Han compare to him? If Xiao Han was not born in the Xiao family, with his aptitude and breadth of mind, what level could he have reached? Han Yin Yao's face showed a trace of gentle reminiscence. Let's put aside these strengths and weaknesses for now. What I remember most is the first time we met in the magnificent jewel hall. His eyes were very clear and free. As she spoke, she slowly raised her head and said, Father, although your daughter's appearance is not rare, I am confident that it is enough to cause the downfall of a city. In this world, I do not belittle myself, but the number of women who can stand shoulder to shoulder with me can be counted with one's fingers. I believe you will not deny this, right? Han Zhanming nodded silently. Han Yin Yao was an outstanding beauty and could be said to be the most beautiful woman in the Silver Blizzard City. How could he not know this? Even to this day, the title of the most beautiful woman in the city had never changed hands. He had long been used to seeing some of his disciples suddenly stare at his daughter. So how could he not know his daughter's beauty? But when Jun Wui saw me, although his eyes were stunned for a moment, he returned to normal in a very short time. Han Yin Yao's face showed a trace of shy smile. Then when he left, he was even more resolute, without any worries. I remember that I had a medicinal herb in my hands that he urgently needed, and he practically snatched it, shoved a roll of silver notes into my hands, and left in a hurry. At that time, I was so proud and arrogant, so I followed him. At that time, his Xian cultivation was not even at the gold Xian level, so he naturally did not notice me. I originally wanted to play a trick on him, but I unexpectedly found out that the reason he left in such a hurry was to treat the poison of an injured deputy general, and the medicinal herb was the one he bought for me. The deputy general was plotted against and poisoned deeply. Although the medicine was effective, he was already deeply poisoned and the medicine could no longer take effect. After taking the medicine, he was barely able to speak a few words before the poison attacked his heart and he died. At that time, Jun Wui was lying on his body, crying, and sucking on the injured part of his body in vain, trying to save him, but in the end, he was powerless. Father, that was the first time I saw a man cry, and I suddenly understood what it meant to be a brother. Han Yin Yao's face was full of sorrow. I quietly left, and when I returned, I often saw the image of him holding the corpse and crying bitterly. For the sake of a brother who was almost hopeless, and who was only a subordinate, he gave up the opportunity to be alone with me, and hurriedly returned, without the slightest bit of reluctance. After a few days, we met again, and he was sending his elder brother off to battle. So, after meeting him again and again, I felt that although Jun Wui was not a peerless genius, nor was he a descendant of a super aristocratic family, he was a real man. In front of me, he never concealed himself. He was very honest and very frank. Han Yin Yao quietly said, "What other people think, what they say, I don't care, but in my eyes, Xiao Han is a very fake person." The way Xiao Han looked at me was very intoxicated, but also full of pride. It was as if he was looking at something that belonged to him, as if I was already in his palm. But the way Jun Wui looked at me was only love and respect. So, I like Jun Wui and hate Xiao Han. Han Zhanmeng sighed deeply. Perhaps there is another reason. Xiao Han is the future son-in-law you all chose, and you never asked for my permission. As for Jun Wui, he is the man I like, and I feel that I can rely on him for life. Han Yin Yao's voice became more and more calm, but to Han Zhanmeng, it sounded like a daughter shouting loudly. Maybe it was because of the ancestral teachings, or because of the friendship between the two families at that time, the marriage was decided. But after we grew up, did you all feel that Xiao Han is very narrow-minded? Do you know how many disciples have had their hands and feet broken by him just because they said a few words to me? Some of them were even his uncles and brothers. Do you know that Xiao Han is an extremely dissolute person? When he was training in Jianghu, he started to flirt with women the moment he stepped into the secular world. He is even more unscrupulous in his actions. Whenever he does not comply with his wishes, he will use forceful means. And once the other party is stronger, he will use the name Han Chung, and sure enough, it is always successful. With such a character, can you just close your eyes and let your daughter marry him? Maybe you can pretend that you don't know, but I can't. Of course, I understand that you want to marry him, but have you ever thought about whether I would be happy if I really married Xiao Han? Xiao Han's behavior has never been a secret. Do you really not know? But Father, you still did not change your mind. At that time, did you know, Father, I was actually in despair. I was completely in despair. Han Yin Yao's eyes slowly filled with tears. Han Zhanmeng listened in a daze, and suddenly his heart was full of regret. Even if he did not know all this, he had at least heard about it. But he had never taken it to heart. He had only thought that after marriage, things would naturally get better. Under the care of the elders of the two families, how bad could things be? Only now did he know that he had made a huge mistake. Han Yin Yao said angrily, "Until I met Jun Wui. Father, I believe that any girl would choose Jun Wui over Xiao Han for the sake of her lifelong happiness, right? He is just a beast in human skin." After the trip to Tianxiang, the Xiao family became even more domineering. From the beginning to the end, Jun Wui did not know my identity, nor did he have the slightest intention of clinging to the Silver Blizzard City. But the Xiao family directly sent people to warn them. Was that a warning? That was a naked humiliation. They even forced me to return to the mountain. After that, they used all kinds of methods to attack the Jun family. What crime did Jun Wuhui commit? The god of war of a generation, an unparalleled hero, had died with injustice because of them. Jun Wu Meng was a hero, an upright man, but because of us, he died tragically in Tian Guanlin. What's more, Jun Wu Hui's two sons also died because of this, and they were only teenagers. Jun Wu, he had also been beaten into a cripple. The reason why he hadn't died was probably because of Xiao Han's words. He wanted to make him beg for death, but he couldn't. If it was not for me, I would have died on the spot, and the Xiao family even planned to annihilate the Jun family. Didn't you know all this? But did you say anything? Daddy, your daughter's life has been ruined just like that. Han Yanyao's eyes were empty as she looked at her father. It was because of me that Jun Wu Hui and Jun Wu Meng died. Jun Mo and Jun Mo Cho also died when they were young. All of this is because of me. Father, if you were Jun Wui, would you want such a disaster? No matter how much you like this woman, your family all died because of her. Would you still accept her? Father, put yourself in her shoes. I have a conscience. People often say, what people do, the heavens watch, karma, karma, karma. But is there real justice? In this world where the fist is the strongest, justice is not in the hearts of the people. Right and wrong are determined by strength. Even if there is someone who has the strength to uphold justice, but due to various reasons, he is not willing to stand up for this tragedy. How many supremes and superior supremes there are in this world. As long as they stand up and say something, they can avoid this tragedy. But they did not. What can they do? What can they do? Han Zhanmeng frowned in pain, looking at his daughter's sorrowful story, but he could not say a word. He felt as if something was stuck in his throat. How could he not know that when his daughter said someone who has the strength to uphold justice, but due to various reasons, he is not willing to stand up for it, she was talking about him? Facing his daughter who had suffered for 10 years, what could he say? Han Yanyao stood up slowly, her eyes filled with sadness as she looked at the snowflakes floating in the cave, and said slowly, "This cave is very cold, so cold that even I can't stand it. But I don't want to go down. I would rather stay here until I die. I don't want to go down and see those familiar faces because it makes me sick. It makes me hate. It makes me want to kill them all. They are not worthy of being human," Han Yanyao said quietly. "On the first day I came here, I carved the names of big brother Jun Wu Hui and second brother Jun Wu Meng on the ice wall and set up their divine positions. Later, I found out that my two nephews also died because of this. I stayed here and worshipped them. There is no incense or paper money here. Only me, a sinful woman, kowtowing 3 times a day. Other than that, I can do nothing else. I can only face them every night and sincerely say sorry to them. Say sorry. I know it is meaningless, but I will still do it. Accompany them like this because I have let them down and I will never be able to atone for it in this life. Their deaths are my responsibility." Han Yanyao's face was frighteningly calm. "And I am Jun Wu Yi's woman. I am a member of the Jun family. Father, we don't have an official marriage. We don't even have the incense and candles. We don't even have the words of a matchmaker. But I've already decided that I'm a member of the Jun family. If I were to die here one day, I hope that Father can fulfill my wish and bring my remains back to the Jun family for a proper burial. This may be the last request of a daughter to a father in this life." Han Zhanmeng slowly stood up and sighed to the sky. He had always thought that he would see his long-lost daughter again this time. He must have had a lot to say, but now he found himself speechless. He couldn't say anything at all. That's right, the heavens are watching. Those who have the power to uphold justice, for various reasons, are not willing to stand up. But what? What? He himself, daughter, you don't have to be so pessimistic. Maybe Jun Wu Yi will come to the Silver Blizzard City one day to pick you up when he is successful in his cultivation. As long as Jun Wu Yi has such strength, I will definitely help you too." Han Zhanmeng took a deep breath and made a promise. "Even if I have to fall out with the Xiao family, I will make sure that your wish is fulfilled this time. Father, if you had said this 10 years ago, perhaps all the tragedies could have been avoided. But now it is too late. The tragedy has been cast, and the dead cannot be brought back to life. Even if he doesn't, I believe that he will come to the Silver Blizzard City, but not to pick me up. It is for revenge. The blood feud between the June family and the Silver Blizzard City is irreconcilable. I know his temper very well. The blood feud between the two brothers of the June family is a sore point for him, and it is also a sore point for me. This kind of sore point cannot be eliminated. Father, that's a brother made of flesh and blood. Our Han family and the Shao family are only brothers of different surnames, and we have been protecting each other for thousands of years. Not to mention that we are brothers of the same mother. Han Yin Yao smiled sadly and said, Father, when Jun Wu Yi climbs the snowy mountain, my life will end on the day he arrives. I will personally go to the underworld to apologize to Big Brother Jun, Second Brother Jun, and my two nephews. No, I will not allow it. Han Zhongming's body trembled with fear, and he shouted sternly, You cannot be so reckless. If you do this, how will your mother and I face it? Father and mother's shock at my passing? I am sure they will be very sad. However, Jun Wu, he had to face the torment of having his two brothers and nephews die for him every single day and every single night of the past few years. How will he face it? Father, Xiao Han said that he would make Jun Wu Yi suffer a fate worse than death, and he has done it. I believe that Jun Wu Yi will suffer a fate worse than death for the past 10 years. Much worse. Han Yin Yao laughed coldly. Since he has committed a sin, he will have to pay the price. Apart from using human lives to pay this price, there was nothing else that could be used to pay this price. I only hope that the Han family of the Silver Blizzard City won't stand on the side of the Shao family when that day comes. That would only add to our mistakes. Han Zhongming looked up to the sky and sighed, and he said in a low voice, Yao, you don't have to wait too long. The Jun family has already released the news that they will attack the Silver City on the 2nd of February this year. This news is already known to the whole world. On the 2nd of February, they will destroy the Silver City with one sword. This is the declaration of war from the Jun family. Han Yin Yao suddenly jumped up and looked at her father with wild joy. Her voice trembled as she said, Daddy, is this real? You're not kidding me, are you? Of course it's true. Do you think I'm joking when I say that foreign enemies are attacking the Silver City? Han Zhongming nodded speechlessly. Looking at his daughter's happy face, he suddenly felt powerless. His own daughter was so happy that the enemy was going to attack them. The Jun family had said that they were going to attack the whole Silver City and not just the Shao family. Then, how strong is the Jun family now? If they don't have full confidence, won't they be in danger? Han Yin Yao asked worriedly. The strength of the Jun family? They are stronger than the Silver City. Han Zhongming smiled bitterly. You can rest assured. That's great. Don't worry, Father. Wu Yi is not someone who kills indiscriminately. Attacking the Silver City is just to take revenge on the Shao family. He will never implicate the innocent. I trust him on this. Han Yin Yao's eyes were full of deep hatred. When the time comes, I want everyone in the Shao family, starting from Shao Han, to die without a whole corpse. Not even the chickens and dogs will be spared. I hope so, but the Shao family. Han Zhongming looked troubled, and it was difficult for him to say it out loud. The Shao family? What happened to them? The Shao family has been very strange lately. Han Zhongming sighed. At the top of the sword peak, facing only his daughter, he finally voiced out his suspicions. Something is very strange? What do you mean? Han Yin Yao frowned and looked at her father. It is very strange. In early autumn, the third elder and the others signed a contract with the 7 swords of the Silver City and went down the mountain with your sister. They still haven't come back. Han Zhongming sighed. The information that was sent to me was very strange. I had already felt that something was wrong, but none of the people I sent to gather information came back. And During this time, the Shao family has been paying more attention to the intelligence system of the Silver City. Almost none of the information was sent to me, so I feel very depressed, and the sense of crisis is very strong. It seemed like something bad was about to happen. This premonition is very strong. The Shao family. For so many years, you have spoiled the Shao family. This is nothing new. Han Yin Yao said calmly. Internal strife is destined to be unavoidable. No matter how deep their friendship was in the past, it couldn't resist the arrogance of being spoiled generation after generation, which led to the wild ambition of wolves. This is not something to be alarmed about. What I'm most worried about now is that Meng'er went out with them. Will she? Han Yin Yao's eyes were full of anxiety. The great elders speculated that. Meng'er is very likely to be like you. Han Zhanming shook his head, but I feel that there is something fishy about it. Xiao Han and Xiao Feng were also in the team, but they didn't come back. Even if they are like me, there is nothing strange about it, because the whole Xiao family is just a bunch of trash. No wonder I didn't see that bastard Xiao Han during this time. So they went out. Han Yin Yao paused and said seriously, Father, you have to be careful of the Xiao family's tricks. You can't be careless. Also, in this war, we can't let the Xiao family be dragged into it. Since he said that he is going to take revenge, the Xiao family's fate can be predicted. If the Han family gets involved, the consequences will be unimaginable. Han Zhanming sighed and avoided the question. Have you decided to stay here? The Jun family's people will come in 20 days at most. Don't you want to go down? Go down? Han Yin Yao smiled sadly, but did not say another word. Her eyes stared blankly at the snowstorm outside the cave. Then, she quietly turned around and walked to an ice wall, standing there for a long time. Han Zhanming walked closer and saw a few lines of words engraved on the ice wall. Late Brother Jun Hui's Memorial Tablet. Late Brother Jun Hui Wu Meng's Memorial Tablet. Nephew Mo and Nephew Mo Chao's Memorial Tablets. For Memorial Tablets, the inscription was, Unfilial sister-in-law Han Yin Yao stands in tears. Han Zhanming suddenly understood his daughter and seemed to have touched the misery in his daughter's heart. These four names were like four mountains that had heavily pressed down on his daughter's body. They carried an ancient and desolate feeling and had separated his daughter and Jun Wu Yi from each other. Even if Blizzard Silver City was destroyed and the Shao family was destroyed, this mountain in her heart could not be removed. Han Yin Yao's dream of a lifetime had been shattered the moment the Shao family had dealt with Jun Wu Hui. There was no more hope for her to realize her dream. She was still supporting herself to live, just waiting for revenge, just waiting for the right time to atone for her sins. At that time, she would use her own life to atone for her sins, to express her guilt. Was this the retribution of those who had the power to uphold justice, but for various reasons refused to stand up for her? Han Zhanming got up sadly and floated down the Sword Peak, full of worries behind him. Amidst the clouds and mist, a graceful white-clothed figure, her black hair fluttering in the wind and snow. She was currently gazing into the distance. On the face of this peerless heavenly fragrance, clear and cold tears slowly slid down. When they fell to the ground, they had already frozen into beads of ice. She stood there quietly, as if she had been standing at the peak of the Sword Peak since ancient times. Chapter 658. Han Zhanming went straight through the main hall of the Silver Blizzard City, and then quietly left through a secret passage, arriving at a secret place halfway up the mountain. This place was still within the secret passage, and only this secret passage could lead to this place. Although this place was located in the middle of the mountain, the concentration of heaven and earth spiritual chi here was far purer than any other place on the snow mountain. Even the peak of the Sword Peak, where Han Yin Yao was located, was far inferior. The stone room was very spacious, with a circumference of about 100 feet. It was like an underground hall. There were many stalactites hanging in the air, forming a variety of strange shapes and sizes. On the surrounding stone walls, there were countless glittering and translucent spots of light, shining brightly. These were all kinds of unknown crystals that were naturally inlaid on the stone walls. At the very center of the stone chamber, there was another peculiar shape. It was roughly hexagonal, and on each corner there was a huge white crystal that naturally protruded from the ground. It happened to form 6 white petals, and the center was naturally arranged to form a lotus seat. The gentle light emitted by the mystical crystals from all directions, and even the ceiling of the cave coincidentally gathered in the middle. As the light gathered in the middle, it formed a light pillar that was almost tangible. It went straight to the top of the cave, and after being refracted by the top of the cave, it once again connected with the crystals in all directions, forming an indescribable subtle cycle. The power of nature was indeed magical. And within this huge light beam, which was as thick as a bucket, was a dense fog. If an expert with profound Xian cultivation were to carefully examine this fog, it would not be difficult to discover that the fog was actually the purest heaven and earth spiritual qi. This was the biggest secret of the Silver Blizzard City. This was a stone room that was completely formed by nature. In this stone room, sitting on a naturally formed lotus seat, one's cultivation progress would be at least 10 times faster than in the outside world. Throughout history, only one person could enter this place. Only the Lord of the Silver Blizzard City, the leader of the Han family. This secret had always been passed down by word of mouth and would never be leaked to outsiders. However, this stone chamber also had a greater restriction. If one's strength had not reached the superior supreme level and recklessly entered the lotus seat to cultivate, then it wouldn't take long before his body exploded and he would die. In fact, this was also reasonable. After all, the heaven and earth spiritual qi contained in this place was too thick, and the quantity was too great. Even experts who had reached the level of superior supreme could not cultivate on the lotus platform for too long. However, the successive city lords were still able to cultivate in this stone room. As long as they didn't enter the lotus pedestal, they wouldn't be overwhelmed by the overabundance of spiritual qi. Although his cultivation speed was far inferior to cultivating on the lotus platform, it was still 3 to 4 times faster than cultivating outside. Therefore, the city lords of the Silver Blizzard City were able to become great masters at a very young age. Take Han Jianming, for example. His innate talent was only above average, but he was able to successfully break through the ranks of the Supremes before the age of 50. Now, he was trying to break through the ranks of the Supremes. This was a mysterious cave that was accidentally discovered when the Silver Blizzard City was being built. Once it was discovered, it was immediately classified as a top secret. After the decline of the other 2 families, the Han family continued to keep this secret until now. Even though the Shao family had almost controlled the entire Silver Blizzard City, they still had no idea about this secret. The Lord of the Silver Blizzard City was sitting upright in that milky white beam of light. He was the 3rd great master among the 8 great masters. He was second only to the chief great master Yun Bi-chun and the great master Li Ju-tian, the great master of the Snow Blizzard City, Han Fengshui. But Old City Lord Han's current level could no longer be judged by the Supremes. In fact, he had already surpassed the superior supreme level and reached an even higher level. This was the magical effect of this mysterious cave. Ever since Han Fengshui had successfully broken through to the superior supreme level, he had kept this shocking news a secret. He had only passed the position of city lord to his son and had been in seclusion in this cave for 30 years. After Han Jianming came in, he did not dare to make a sound and only stood quietly at the side. After a long time, the light finally moved slightly and an old man in white floated out. His clear eyes looked at Han Jianming and said, "Meng, why have you come here today? You look so anxious. Is there something urgent?" The corner of Han Jianming's mouth twitched, and a strange feeling arose in his heart. His youngest daughter's nickname was Meng, but his old father still called him Menger. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Come to think of it, when Han Jianming had named his youngest daughter Han Yin Ming, he had this thought in mind. No matter what, I'm the lord of the city, and I'm also her father, but you still call her Ming every day. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But it was not convenient for him to say it out loud. So he named his youngest daughter Ming. What he meant was, your granddaughter is also called Ming, so you can't call me Ming anymore, right? There should at least be a little bit of taboo, right? Who would have thought that her father, who had always been wise and far-sighted, seemed to be unaware of this? He still addressed her as Ming'er when he saw her, and also called his granddaughter Ming'er when he saw her. The two generations of father and daughter had the same name. Han Jianming sighed and finally decided not to think about this infinitely depressing problem anymore. He had never won against his old father. He got straight to the point and said, "Father, the situation in Silver City has been very strange recently. I have analyzed it for a long time and finally came to a very unexpected conclusion. I hope you can give me some advice." Han Jianming's face was very serious, and he said slowly, "Father, the Shao family has been very sneaky recently. I even suspect that they are secretly plotting something against the Silver City." The Shao family. Han Fengshui's eyes flashed, and he laughed. Old Master Han was already over 100 years old, but from his face, he seemed to be about the same age as his son. If not for the fact that he deliberately kept his hair white, he would have looked like Han Jianming's brother. "Just be careful. Don't worry too much," Han Fengshui said indifferently. "The Shao family's perverse actions over the years are almost over. I guess their wild ambition has finally reached its peak. However, they don't have the power to directly shake the Han family. They can only play dirty tricks in the dark." "Then what do you mean, father?" Han Jianming was startled. He thought that his father would be shocked when he said such a big thing, but he didn't expect such a casual reaction. "If the Shao family has no ulterior motives, then we, the Han family, must continue to follow the teachings of our ancestors and continue to support each other through thick and thin. This is the teachings of our ancestors and must not be violated. And we, the Han family, have been doing this for thousands of years. Of course, we must continue to do so." Han Fengshui said lightly, "The relationship between the Shao family and the Han family is complicated. Now, it can be said that you are in me and I am in you. Whether the Silver City loses the Han family or the Shao family, it will be a great loss, and they will have to pay a heavy price. Therefore, for generations, we have carefully protected each other. It would be a lie to say that it is not tiring. Under such circumstances, the Han family has always been the leader of the Silver City, and the Shao family as a support. The Shao family has never been the leader. It would be impossible for the Shao clan to not have any complaints after such a long period of accumulation. Therefore, sooner or later, the Shao family will have the intention to take over the Silver City. This is human ambition, human desire. It is inevitable. There is no need to make a fuss about it." Han Fengshui's eyes shone with wisdom as he looked at Han Jianming and said with a smile, "In your generation, I don't know if it is a coincidence, but there are no male heirs, only 2 girls. Therefore, the Shao family's ambition is growing. In addition, there is a strong fear, so it is reasonable for them to choose this time to act. Because this is the best time." Reasonable? Han Jianming was speechless. Could it be that it was reasonable for the Shao family to betray the Silver City? Of course it is reasonable. Why not? Any family that had been enslaved by another family for thousands of years would want to be the master of their own family. Although we, the Han family, have never enslaved the Shao family, but for thousands of years the Shao family has done many things for us. It is natural for the Han family to do the same thing, but for the Shao family to do it, in their hearts, it is slavery. Different status, different mentality. This has been the case since ancient times. Moreover, after putting in so much effort, it is the Silver City that reaps the benefits, not the Shao family. If it were you, you would feel the same way, right? Han Fengshui smiled and said, "Therefore, the old saying, those who are not of our race are bound to have a different heart. This old saying is very reasonable. So what should we do? The oath made by our ancestors still hangs in the hall. As long as the Silver City exists, The descendants of the Shao family will never die. Generation after generation, the ancestral teachings will never be broken. Han Zhanming recited the ancestral teachings in a low voice and frowned. If we act up and deal with the Shao family, won't we be going against the ancestral teachings? This matter was witnessed by the whole world. Who said you should deal with the Shao family? Han Fengshui frowned and looked at his son. Why do you want to deal with the Shao family? Han Zhanming was confused by his father. His eyes widened, and he did not know what to say. He stammered, "Not deal with the Shao family? Then, don't tell me we're going to hand over the Silver City's foundation?" Chapter 659. This, Han Zhanming seemed to have understood a little, but his mind was still a mess. Breaking the promise. We can't be the first to break the promise. But what if the Shao family breaks the promise? That's their problem. Although our ancestors forbade us from breaking the promise, he didn't tell us to stretch our necks and wait for death, right? Han Fengshui snorted and said, "The Shao family breaking the promise makes them enemies. And it's a life and death grudge that wants to destroy the Han clan. Do you need me to teach you how to deal with enemies? Besides, if the Shao family really makes a move, it's a great thing for the Han clan, because we can finally get rid of this." He didn't continue, but the meaning was clear. "I understand." Han Zhanming bowed his head in complete submission. His father's wisdom, decisiveness, and sharpness were far beyond his own. "Good. Meng, you have to understand one thing. The so-called brothers, there's another saying, 2 brothers for a lifetime." You have to look at this sentence cautiously, especially the first 3 words, 1 lifetime. This is the key. Han Fengshui sighed and said, "Brothers can go through fire and water for each other, even die 10,000 times. However, after this life, the descendants of brothers might not necessarily become brothers. If it goes on for a few more generations, they may become passers-by or even enemies." He sighed and said, "Even if they are brothers born from the same mother, after a few generations, the blood relationship will fade. Not to mention the descendants of brothers with different surnames. As time goes on, is there ever a banquet that doesn't come to an end? So, don't forcefully transfer your feelings to the next generation, because that's a shackle to the next generation, an enormous shackle." "I'll remember, I won't forget." Han Zhanming finally relaxed. Since his father said so, he was already prepared in his heart. The reason why I mentioned this to you today is to wake you up, to let you understand that you made such a mistake with Yao and Meng. And because of this mistake, how much tragedy has it caused? Do you understand? Han Fengshui looked at his son helplessly and even a little annoyed. But it was only after the Shao family begged me to agree to the marriage. It was difficult for me to refuse. Han Zhanming lowered his head guiltily. You stopped the Shao family from seeking revenge after the incident with Yao. So, you felt that you owed them something. So, you gave them more and more power in the Silver City and let them take charge of some important places. But you didn't know that this was an irreparable mistake. Once there was such a wound, it would not heal. The more you accommodate them, not only will they not feel grateful, but will also encourage their ambitions. So, if the Shao family rebelled, it was actually because you allowed them to do so in the past 10 years. Han Fengshui looked at his son sternly. You should know that you are the leader of the Silver City. He was the master of the Silver City. Even if the Shao family was dissatisfied, what could they do? If he dared to show his true face, he would be punished according to the family rules. As a leader, if he did not have cruel and ruthless methods, how could he not fall? So, your benevolent character has cast the root of this betrayal. You must take this as a warning. Fortunately, it has happened now. If it happens again after I die, then wouldn't the thousands of years of hard work of our ancestors belong to the Shao family? Then, how will you face the Han family ancestors? Han Zhanming was sweating profusely. He was ashamed beyond words. Han Fengshui smiled and said slowly, "Well, it's good that you understand. It's not too late to mend the pen after the sheep is lost. You should go out first. You should know that the Silver City still has the Han family. Even if the Shao family rebelled, they wouldn't be able to do much. He gently sneered. Then, he casually said, "Do you think that you're very powerful just because you've got more than 20 spirit Xian experts?" Han Jianming was relieved. He suddenly felt that there was nothing in the world that was worthy of his attention. His father was already a super expert at the venerable realm. If the Shao family's Shun Xian couldn't even enter his eyes, then in his father's eyes, wouldn't he be no different from a chicken or a dog? There's one more thing. It's about the Jun family. Jun Moxie from the Jun family has announced that he will come to the Silver City on the 2nd of February to take revenge on the Shao family. Father, do you have any other opinions on this? Han Jianming was about to leave when he suddenly thought of this matter and asked. The cycle of karma and retribution. The Shao family should bear the consequences of their own actions. The Han family must not get involved in this matter. Han Fengshui's eyes flashed, and he said in a low voice, "Even if the Shao family did not rebel before this, we must not get involved. 10 years ago, the Jun family was bullied by the Shao family without the slightest ability to resist. But today they can fight back. It's only been 10 years. You have to see what this means. The Jun family is definitely not a party to be trifled with." Han Jianming's heart skipped a beat, and he walked out with his head down, suddenly feeling relaxed. The only thing on his mind now was the safety of the third elder and his daughter, who had been away for a long time. He no longer cared about the Shao family's little tricks in the Silver City. Maybe Han Fengshui was confident and thought that everything was under control, but how would the truth turn out? This was something that no one could say for sure. Nothing was absolute in this world. Everything was possible. The 14th of the first month. Jun Mo Xie frowned as he sat in front of Princess Lingming's bed. He stretched out his finger to feel her pulse. Dugu Xiao Yi, who was beside him, had a worried look on her face as she asked anxiously, "How is she?" "She won't die," Jun Moxie said lightly. "Aya, why are you so cold?" Dugu Xiaoyi pouted and rolled her eyes at him. "Sister Raimu is so pitiful, and you are still making sarcastic remarks. When will Sister Raimu wake up?" "Pitiful? She is indeed pitiful. But there are so many people in this world who are more pitiful than her. She is definitely one of the luckier ones in this world. After all, she still has us to take care of her." Jun Mo Xie slowly retracted his finger and said lightly, "Her injury was actually not that serious. Wen Songyu's palm was extremely powerful, but it wasn't aimed at her. She was so desperate to save her mother that she took it head-on without caring about her own condition. She was pushed down by the huge force, and when she fell, she accidentally hit a stone on the ground, which injured her skull and caused a blood clot in her head. That's why she was unconscious until now. If I were to break it open for her, I would be able to wake her up immediately. But now, her consciousness is in a mess. Even though she is unconscious, it is still the same. If she wakes up at this time, her skull injury has not healed yet. Once she becomes emotional and we're not around, it is very likely that her blood vessels will burst and she will lose consciousness forever. So, I will try not to move her. Let her wake up after her trauma is basically healed. Poor Sister Raimu. I don't know how she will face such a cruel fact after she wakes up." With tears in her eyes, the little girl looked at Princess Raimu lying on the bed and said pitifully. But the next moment, she returned to her usual self. Her pretty big eyes stared at Jun Moxie with jealousy. "Brother Mo Xie, has your mistress been looking for you these days?" "No, that girl can't wait to hide from me. How dare she look for me?" Jun Moxie smirked and pinched Dugu Xiaoyi's smooth and pretty face. He chuckled and said, "I have a way to deal with little Lolas like you." "Huh?" Dugu Xiaoyi blushed and shouted, Who is the same as that girl? I am not a lowly." During this period of time, she had already understood the meaning of lowly. Listening to these words, it was obvious that Jun Moxie was thinking that she was too small. How could she tolerate this? She immediately puffed up her cheeks and retorted angrily. You say you're not a lowly. Then what are you?" Jun Moxie held back his laughter. Dugu Xiaoyi rolled her big eyes and suddenly chuckled. She actually struck a flirtatious pose and said in a seductive voice, "My place is big. I'm already a big girl. It is not a problem for me to get married." "Oh, the place that should be big is big. Where is it big? Why can't I see it? Come here. Let me feel which part is big." June Moxie said in surprise and reached out his hand curiously. "Pervert." Dugu Xiaoyi jumped and dodged it. She hugged her chest and said with hatred, "I said, I can get married. Who asked you to check?" "Ah, really? Then I will definitely find a good husband for you in a few days." June Moxie was shocked and immediately said seriously, "Xiao, what do you think of Tang Yuan? Leave it to me as long as you nod your head." June Mo Xie vowed solemnly. Dugu Xiaoyi was instantly furious. She screamed and jumped into his arms. She opened her mouth and bit his shoulder with her snow-white teeth. June Moxie howled and bared his teeth. "Little girl, why are you like Little White? Your teeth are really good." After saying that, he remembered that he hadn't seen Little White for a long time. He couldn't help but ask, "Where's Little White?" "Little White is big now. I can't carry him anymore." Dugu Xiaoyi whistled proudly. Suddenly, a white shadow rushed in and jumped into June Moxie's arms. It was Little White with a leopard head and big eyes. "Damn, he's really heavy." June Moxie grabbed its two front paws and pulled them down. He roughly estimated that this fellow was at least 50 kilograms. He actually grew so fast. When Sister Shui Yin was here, she often fed it, so it became fatter and fatter. Its body also became bigger and longer. "It's not Little White anymore, it's Big White now." Dugu Xiaoyi mumbled, "It's big now, but it's not as cute as before." She suddenly became excited and said, "But Little White is very powerful now. My brothers can't beat it anymore." "Huh?" June Moxie was shocked. "How old is this fellow now? The 7 bull-like strong men of the Dugu family can't beat it anymore." Chapter 660. June Moxie didn't know that when Mei Shuyan was here, she had fed Little White good food that the previous leopard kings couldn't even get their hands on. Under such extreme stimulation, in addition to the fact that Little White had already been promoted by June Moxie, it naturally grew at a godly speed. Not only that, the strong medicinal effects of those good food were still in its body that hadn't been completely digested. If it was completely digested, it would probably be comparable to a peak 8th level Xian beast even before it truly grew up. One had to know that a peak 8th level Xian beast was equivalent to an expert like Tian Xian. However, the moment he mentioned Mei Shuyan, June Moxie couldn't help but feel a little startled. Had she already left for so long? Her return date was set at the 2nd of February. She would be back in a few days. Dugu Xiaoyi sensitively noticed that he was distracted and couldn't help but say worriedly, "Big brother Mo Xie, you have big sister Shui Yin, but you can't abandon me. I'm already yours. I've been yours even longer than big sister Shui Yin." June Moxie almost spat out the tea in his mouth as he asked with a dumbfounded expression, "What? Since when are you one of my people? When did this happen? Why didn't I know about it?" "It's yours. It's yours." Dugu Xiaoyi pouted and shouted, "Anyway, you can't abandon me. I want. Of course I want." June Moxie suddenly beamed with delight and stretched out his hands. "Come, good Xiaoyi, let big brother hug and kiss you, and also check where you've grown big." Dugu Xiaoyi shrieked and looked at him while trembling. "What do you want to do? Don't mess around. Since you're already mine, what's wrong with hugs and kisses? Isn't this proper procedure? Come, don't be shy." June Moxie's smile became even more sinister. "You don't come over. I'm going to scream." Dugu Xiaoyi jumped and almost jumped to the door. Her face was deathly pale, and she still had some lingering fear in her voice. No, no. I saw it that day. Sister Qing Han was very miserable because of you. I. Suddenly, she turned around and ran away. June Moxie was stunned. "I saw it that day. Sister Qing Han was so miserable because of you." June Mo Xie couldn't help but think of Guan Qing Han. He thought of Dugu Xiaoyi's words, and his heart started to burn with passion. Then, he thought of Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi's words. Although this little girl was quite fierce at times, she was still quite cute most of the time. He walked out of the door with a smile on his face. He wanted to see if the little girl had gone far, but he didn't expect to see another little girl, Han Yinming, hopping over with her hands clasped behind her back. June Moxie laughed and said, "Aya, it's my little wife. We're really fated. Are you here to warm my bed? Quick, quick, let's hurry while it's still early." Han Yinming screamed as soon as she saw him. Her beautiful face turned pale. She turned around and hastily ran away like a fish that had escaped the net. The young Master June had been feeling very happy since he had managed to deal with the two little Lolas in such a short time. In fact, he felt very proud and elated. So, he smiled mischievously, turned around, and walked towards his courtyard. He was about to enter the Hongjun Pagoda to refine pills, but he was stopped by Jun Wui the moment he turned around. As the 2nd of February approached, Jun Wui was even more diligent in his cultivation. But his appearance here surprised June Moxie a little. The 2nd of February is approaching. What are your plans? 3rd Master June had buried this matter in his heart for a long time. His eyes were burning with passion. "Wait," June Moxie said. "Wait for the people from Tian Fa and the Dongfang family to arrive. Then we can set off immediately. The journey to the Silver City is a long one. Even if we set off now, we may not be able to make it in time for the 2nd of February. What were your plans?" Jun Wui was a little anxious. "Third uncle, you must know that Tian Fa has a special kind of flying shin beast." Jun Moxie smiled and said, "I've already arranged everything. We can set off when the people from grandmother's family arrive. So that's how it is." Jun Wui was relieved. At this time, they suddenly heard a voice coming from the door. It was the guard's voice. "Young master, may I ask who you are looking for?" "Sunrise Dongfang, I am invincible." A childish voice sounded, but it was filled with the vicissitudes of life. "Big brother, please tell June Moxie that I, Dongfang, am invincible." June Moxie snorted and laughed. "Sunrise Dongfang, I am invincible." Young Master June took a step out of the door, and it was none other than that eccentric little boy. June Moxie pretended to be serious and said, "It's actually Dongfang. Hero has arrived. The walls of my house are shining. May Hero Dongfang rule the martial world for thousands of years." "Cousin, ha ha ha, I'm here." It was Dongfang and little Huai outside the door. They opened their arms and rushed over. Suddenly, they stopped and scratched their heads. "What did you say?" "What? Rule the martial world. This is an exclusive slogan that I, your cousin, specially made for you, Hero Dongfang," June Moxie said sincerely. "Sunrise Dongfang, I am invincible. Since I am invincible, I am invincible. Wouldn't it be a waste if I don't establish a world-shaking cause? So, naturally, I want to unify the martial world for thousands of years. What do you think, Hero Dongfang?" June Moxie said with a smile. "Sunrise Dongfang, I am invincible. Unify the martial world for thousands of years." Dongfang repeated it twice. Then his eyes lit up. He laughed and said arrogantly, "Not bad. Not bad, that's great. Unify the martial world for thousands of years. This is the direction that I, Dongfang, will work towards after I am invincible. Cousin, you're really too talented. Just a few simple words made my blood boil. This is a noble goal. Although thinking of it is equivalent to half the success, the other half still needs perseverance to be completely successful." June Moxie encouraged him. Yes, I understand. Dongfang Xiaobai's eyes lit up as he fell into an extreme fantasy. A long, shiny line appeared on the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, he somersaulted in the air and laughed. "The sun rises in the east. Only I am undefeatable. Unify the martial world for thousands of years. Why-ya-ya, ah-woo-woo-woo. Kid, what are you shouting for?" A voice came from behind. It was Dongfang winching and the others. They had not seen each other for a few steps, but Dongfang had already jumped over. Dongfang Wen Dao grabbed his son and slapped his little but silly kid. "What are you shouting for?" Unify the martial world? This is not something that can be said so casually. Dongfang Wenqing said heavily and looked at Jun Moxie reproachfully. Since ancient times, the martial world has always been divided. Each does their own thing. There has never been such a thing as unifying the martial world. Even the three holy lands do not dare to say that they have unified the martial world. They have always been doing things their own way. If this gets out, the Dongfang family will become the target of public criticism. It's just an ambition. I believe they won't take it too seriously. Besides, if the disciples of the Dongfang family take this as their goal, I believe it's also a good thing. Jun Moxie laughed dryly. His mouth was still talking nonsense, but he felt a little guilty in his heart. After all, the method of bearing children that he had given to his uncle before he left was indeed very effective, but it was also very. Why didn't he go crazy this time? And it's such a long journey. It's really tiring. Xia, is the old man at home? Dongfang Wenqing looked at Jun Moxie lovingly. There was a strong sense of gratitude in her eyes. Jun Moxie was startled. Didn't he realize that there was something fishy about it? And he's still doing it? He can't be so slow, can he? Suddenly, his body twitched inexplicably, and he burst into laughter. Jun Moxie's guess was right. Dongfang Wenqing had not realized that Jun Dashao's prescription was a joke. Not only did she not realize that it was a joke, but she also felt that the medicine was effective so quickly and miraculously. She was most grateful to her nephew. How could she know that she had been tricked by her dear nephew? The group of people walked into the Jun family's house, accompanied by Jun Wui. They exchanged greetings along the way. Jun Moxie approached Dongfang Wenqing and asked, "Uncle, are you tired? What are you talking about? It's been a long and arduous journey. How can I not be tired?" "What nonsense are you thinking about? Don't you have any serious thoughts in your head? You're really asking for a beating." Dongfang Wenqing's face turned red, then black. How could he not know what his nephew was asking about? But how could he say it out loud? He immediately put on the airs of an uncle and reprimanded him sternly. Jun Xia shrunk his head back. He was speechless at the way this fellow was trying to save face. "Fine. I wanted to remind you that you don't have to work so hard. I didn't expect that before I could open my mouth, I would get a hot fart. Just pretend that I didn't say anything. If you want to work hard, then go ahead and work hard." The number of Sky Rank and Earth Rank assassins that Dongfang Wenqing and the others brought was quite considerable. Each of them was a top-notch assassin. There were more than 100 of them in total. The three Dongfang brothers were leading them. With the help of Jun Moxie's miraculous elixirs, the former had broken through the bottleneck and entered the ranks of Supreme Masters. His strength had improved tremendously, not to mention that his lifelong wish had been resolved by Jun Moxie. It was the time for him to be proud, especially the Sky Rank assassins of the Dongfang family. They looked proud and walked with their heads held high. They felt that their lineup was enough to look down on the current generation. In the past, the Dongfang family had shaken the whole continent with their strength. This time, with a lineup that was even stronger than before, they were invincible and no hero in the world dared to be called. But this pride of looking down on the current generation was shattered soon after. Humans were still afraid of comparison. The oncoming grassland eagle deity, Solitary Eagle, had a cold expression. His elegant long hair flew in the wind. His black robe was like iron, and his eyes were like an eagle's. As soon as he appeared, an unprecedentedly powerful aura followed. And this was just the beginning, because the hurricane swordsman, Feng Wanyun, also appeared. His robe was as white as snow. His eyes were as sharp as swords. His body was tall and straight. His face was expressionless and silent like a mountain. But his aura was not the least bit inferior to that of Solitary Eagle. I'm in a bad mood. I was reported again. Boss called me out of bed early in the morning and scolded me for the whole morning. And I also corrected myself for the whole morning. Well, it was very complete. I was reported for being vulgar, erotic, violent, desecrating traditional culture, affecting cross-strait relations. Well, this time it's not affecting the international environment, but cross-strait relations. Where did that come from? Desecrating traditional culture. Where did that come from? What a big accusation. I'm very impressed. I now believe that if the Third World War breaks out, it must be because of this evil monarch from another world. I'm very impressed with myself. I didn't know that I had such great power. I'm also very happy when I think about it this way, because June Moxie definitely doesn't have my ability. Playing the zither under the Chinese gold thread tree. I'll also make fun of myself. The book is still written, and the plot continues. To those who report me maliciously, I can only say, I don't know who you are, and I can't control what you do in the future. Do as you please. It doesn't matter. Hearing the cries of the cicadas, don't you plant crops? Chapter 661. The appearance of two superior supremes at the same time. That kind of domineering and terrifying aura, the aura of a super expert that emanated from their bones, was like a scorching sun that shone brightly, causing the heavenly rank assassins of the Dongfang family to instantly go silent out of fear. Oh my, so the Jun family still has two hidden experts. These are the experts of the experts. I should restrain myself a little. If I lose face here, it's not just me, but the whole Dongfang family. Hearing that the family had arrived, Dongfang Wenxin also came out to welcome them. The three brothers, Dongfang Wenxin, were pleasantly surprised to find that their little sister's complexion had improved a lot. They couldn't help but be overjoyed. A moment later, Junjian Tian also came out to meet everyone. The group of people gathered in the main hall and exchanged greetings after a long time of reunion. Junwu called out to his left and right and arranged for the in-laws' troops to be properly arranged. At the same time, in the faraway Tian Fa forest, the entire troop was made up of 5 burly men. These burly men not only had rough bodies, but their appearances were also grotesque. There were more than 500 of them, and each of them looked ferocious and ferocious. Not a single one of them was easy to deal with. There was a very similar adjective for them, and that was valiant, strong. They were really too strong. Any one of them was more than 2 meters tall, and their arms and thighs were obviously at the level of a pole. When people saw them, their minds would be filled with valiant, tall, strong, valiant, strong, and other such words would automatically appear in their minds. And everyone's eyes were almost the same, cruel and bloodthirsty. There was almost no emotion in them at all. But at this moment, such a group of ferocious people were queuing up obediently, waiting to be scolded. These people were the first batch of people that Mei Shuiyan had gathered all the peak-level Xian beasts to transform. And these Xian beast kings who had just transformed in a human form all had the strength of a human supreme master. And almost all of them were high-level supreme masters. In other words, the strength of these people was at least equivalent to Long Crane and Bear Mountain when they first arrived in Tianxiang. A total of 500 people. What a terrifying force. Looking at the boss in front of them, everyone's eyes were filled with heartfelt gratitude and respect. Mei Shuiyan sat up high, looking indifferently at the Tian Fa soldiers in front of her. There was a hint of fanaticism in her eyes. It had been 10,000 years. For 10,000 years, the Tian Fa forest had never been as glorious as it was today. Even when Tian Fa was at its strongest in the past, it had never displayed such frightening strength. At most, they would have more high-end forces than now, but their follow-up forces and potential would definitely not be as abundant as now. Each of these Beast Kings had consumed a pill just as they were about to break through and used it to charge forward in one fell swoop. In other words, each and every one of these Beast Kings had unimaginable potential for future development. In the future, there might be more than 500 Supremes, or even 500 Venerables. This was because they had already passed the most difficult stage of transformation, and they were about to break through the next stage in one fell swoop. In the future, his cultivation would definitely progress at a tremendous pace. From now on, their journey to becoming a venerable one would be a bright and smooth one. It was just a matter of time. If there were really more than 500 venerables, Mei Shuiyan felt terrified just thinking about it. In fact, she even felt a little panicked. But the blood in her body also began to heat up. Right now, even if the 3 holy lands added up, there would not be more than 20 venerables. Even if the younger generation improved, it was just a matter of replacing the old with the new. It would definitely not exceed this number by too much. But TNFA, as long as there was enough time, they could produce 500 venerables, or even more. What a terrifying number that was. And all of this was bestowed by June Moxie. At the front of the troops were the 8 Beast Kings, led by Long Crane and Bear Mountain. The youngest Condor King was the most tragic. He had been in seclusion for a long time and had finally broken through with great difficulty. The moment he came out, he discovered that his Condor tribe had actually produced more than 10 Beast Kings who had successfully transformed. This shock was no small matter. After breaking through with great difficulty, he was filled with confidence. But at the same time, he felt that his position as a Beast King was so unstable that he was almost scared out of his wits. Mei Shuiyan naturally would not mistreat her youngest brother. She gave the Condor King a pill, causing him to leap up another level. Only then did the Condor King calm down. But at the same time, he also felt a wave of regret. If I had known that there were such good things, why would I have gone into seclusion? How much suffering did I have to go through? How much trouble did I have to go through? How much trouble would it have saved me if I had just eaten 2 pills like eating candy? This thought of his led to a beating. This Condor King who had just come out of seclusion was directly beaten into a pig's head by Tiger King and Bear King. The 2 Beast Kings were filled with grief and indignation. All the good things were brought back by us. But the ones who were abused the most were the 2 of us. Was there still justice in this world? Seeing that their youngest brother was still trying to act innocent after taking advantage of him, the 2 Beast Kings did not hold back. Without another word, they went forward and gave the Condor King a beating. It was a beating that was even more explosive than a beating. With regards to this matter, Mei Shuiyan, as the boss, had many complicated matters to attend to. She definitely could not turn a blind eye to everything and allow the Condor King to be tortured for 2 days straight. Since it had just broken through, it definitely needed more training. Hence, the Condor King was tortured to the point where its feathers were almost torn to shreds. Is that all? Is everyone here? Mei Shuiyan raised her eyebrows and asked sternly. Everyone is here. Long Crane stood up straight with his mouth wide open. This mission is of great importance. There must be no mistakes. All the flying Beast Kings will accompany us. In addition, select 1,000 peak-level flying Xian beasts and prepare to carry everyone to the snow mountain. This matter must be done properly. Mei Shuiyan gave the order lightly, but her tone was full of authority and unquestionable. Yes, Long Crane was naturally in charge of the flying Beast Kings, so he hurriedly agreed. Bear Mountain, you leave 50 people behind to guard the TNFA forest. The rest of you, set off together. Mei Shuiyan looked coldly at Bear Mountain. Yes. Bear Old Third puffed up his chest and replied in a high-spirited manner. Everyone wear a piece of clothing. It's fine when you're a Xian beast, but now that you've turned into a human, how can you look like this? Mei Shuiyan frowned. Of the 500 Beast Kings in front of them, other than Long Crane and Bear Mountain, who were well-dressed because of their brother-in-law, the rest of the Beast Kings were still in their human forms and were naked. They only had some leaves to cover their bodies, making them look like the Hulk. Yes, boss. Big Bear beamed with delight as he agreed. He called out to a few Bear tribe members and turned to leave. Not long after, he came back, each of them carrying a mountain of red cloth in their arms. It was the leftovers from the previous purchase. Bear Mountain did not stand on ceremony. He raised his nose and ordered, "Everyone, take a piece of red cloth and wrap it around your body. Make a tree bark belt and tie it around your body. Look at all of you. You look like savages with leaves hanging all over your body. How can you behave like this?" Then Big Bear turned to Mei Shuiyan and said, "Boss, don't you think it's a pity to lose those bear fur coats? If we had brought them back, get lost." Mei Shuiyan only said one word. This guy really has the cheek to say that. Bear Mountain shrank his neck and quickly turned around. He said fiercely, "What are you looking at? Why aren't you putting on your clothes?" Putting on red cloth?" So, under Bear Big Beast King's order, the 500 strong men all turned into brides, all dressed in bright red. The Snake King couldn't help but laugh. It had to be said that such a fiendish and strong man was wearing a red cloth. It was a very visual impact to the people around him. The corner of Mei Shuyan's mouth also twitched. Then, she returned to her usual cold demeanor and ordered sternly, "Everyone go back and prepare. We will set off in 2 days. If anyone doesn't listen, kill them." "Yes," the 500 strong men shouted in unison. Their eyes were filled with a wild, fighting spirit. "After we go back, we will eat and drink to our heart's content. Go to the Monkey King's place and get some monkey wine. Drink as much as you can. This operation is for Big Sister's future and for brother-in-law's great cause. Everyone, keep your spirits up. When we get there, if anyone makes brother-in-law angry, I will skin him alive." Bear Mountain glared and roared. It was like a fox borrowing the tiger's might. Roar! The 500 strong men's eyes were filled with excitement. "Ah, fourth brother, it's fine if you mobilize them, but why are you mobilizing my monkey wine as well? That's our treasure, and we don't have much of it. Are you trying to empty it?" Monkey King Ho Chi scratched his head and jumped up to protest. "I can't not protest. How many mouths are there? If everyone drinks to their heart's content, then the monkey race's 100 years of brewing wine will be gone. What's wrong? Are you distressed for Big Sister and brother-in-law?" Bear Mountain, Earthcracker, Sherbucho, and the others asked maliciously. Ho Chi was scared and panic-stricken. His face was as red as his buttocks. Who's anxious? It's just a little wine, right? Drink it. I don't feel distressed. Brothers, everyone go and get the wine. The Monkey King is very generous today. He just said that everyone can drink as much as they want. Don't be polite. If you can't drink it, you can take it away. Bear Mountain raised his arms and shouted. Wow! A strange roar pierced through the sky of Tian Fa. Monkey King Ho Chi wanted to cry, but no tears came out. The 500-plus people scattered like 500 excited brides. Their bright red clothes reflected the snow on the ground, making them look like nimble flames as they dashed towards the Monkey Clan's gathering place. Mei Shuyan couldn't help but laugh. She stood up and walked down with Qian, Sun's Serpent Queen. Big Sister. Ho Chi looked at her pitifully. Ho Chi, isn't it just a little wine? Is it worth it to feel distressed? Mei Shuyan rolled her eyes at him and said in a low voice, I'll give you one more divine pill later. You won't feel bad about it, really? Ho Chi opened his eyes wide. His eyes turned red in an instant. He looked like a pair of fiery eyes at this moment. Really? Mei Shuyan nodded and smiled. Wahaha roar! The Monkey King screamed and jumped. He did a dozen somersaults in the air. Then, he rushed out and shouted, Drink! Everyone, drink to your heart's content. If it's not enough, we have a secret warehouse over there. We can drink as much as we want today. Chapter 662. Seeing the Monkey King acting so funny and changing so quickly, the Qian Sun Serpent Queen couldn't help but laugh out loud, even though she was full of worries. In the distance, the 9th-level Qian beasts, who had just transformed into their human forms, were wearing red cloths. They were twisting their butts as they chased after each other. A strong aroma of wine had already spread throughout the Tian Fa forest. At the same time, on a mountain peak far away from human habitation. This place was an independent mountain peak surrounded by mountains. This place was very close to the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. Surrounded by mountains and ravines, this mountain peak stood out from the rest. In addition to being surrounded by mountains, it was also surrounded by clouds and mist. The clouds and mist were like white ribbons, floating and sinking halfway up the mountain, faintly discernible. An elegant figure came as if riding the wind. From a foot of the mountain, he did not seem to stop at all. He went all the way to the peak of the mountain as if he was riding on the clouds. With a wave of his sleeve, a leisurely strong wind slowly blew out from his sleeve. It was gentle and slow. However, a pile of rocks in front of him suddenly, silently turned into stone powder that filled the sky. With a wave of this person's sleeve, the stone powder was flung out with a schwa sound. It was unknown how far it flew. On the ground of the mountain peak, a wide platform with a circumference of 40 to 50 feet appeared out of thin air. The man smiled faintly. His hands grasped the air and suddenly lifted up. In the center of the platform, a large stone suddenly rose up slowly. It was as if it had originally been placed on the ground. The large stone slowly rose up, and its shape constantly changed subtly. Finally, it turned into a small and exquisite tea table. It was smooth and clean, and the light was like a mirror. That person did the same thing and made 3 more armchairs next to the small tea table. Although the armchairs were made of stone, they were extremely comfortable to sit on. The lines were even softer, as if they were made by heaven. That person chuckled and casually grabbed a stone the size of a human head. He casually squeezed it, and in an instant, it turned into a teapot. On the teapot, there were dragons and phoenixes embroidered on it, vivid and lifelike. Even a famous craftsman might not be able to carve such exquisite craftsmanship. The teapot was ready, and a few teacups appeared one by one. At this time, he stopped and took out a small bag from his bosom. There was only a small handful of tea leaves in it. The man carefully poured it into the teapot, and then with a wave of his right hand, the pure white snow on the mountain peak actually flew over from the void and condensed above the teapot. Then it automatically turned into a pool of clear water and poured into the teapot. In a moment, the teapot was full. The man waved his hand, and the snow in the void disappeared without a trace with a schwa. The man slowly sat down on the main seat of the 3 armchairs and held the teapot in his hand. In just a moment, the teapot actually emitted traces of hot air. After another moment, the water in the teapot was completely boiling. A rich tea fragrance floated out and did not dissipate for a long time. He gently lifted the teapot and first poured himself a cup. The tea was dark green in color, and the bottom could be seen. The strong fragrance filled the air. He took a sip, and a faint smile appeared on his face. This man looked to be only about 30 years old. His face was like jade, and his lips were red and his teeth were white. His eyes were like bright stars, and his eyebrows were like distant mountains. He wore a white robe with a light green belt around his waist. It was slightly tightened, but it made him look even more elegant and elegant. He leisurely sat down, sitting at the peak of this mountain range. It was as if he was sitting in his own home. The piercingly cold mountain wind blew his hair and robe, and his entire person seemed to be riding the wind and flying away. Anyone who looked at him would know that he was a graceful and talented scholar. However, no one would have thought that this scholar would have such a heaven-defying technique. Without a sound, even the clouds at the waist of the mountain didn't move in the slightest. Almost at the same time, 2 figures strangely appeared behind the white-clothed man. It was as if they had been standing there for a long time. "You've come." The man in white did not turn his head and said lightly, "I've prepared some good tea. I'll treat you to a cup. The tea has been boiled 3 times, and the timing is just right. This is produced by the only 10,000-year-old tea tree in the Immortal Palace. It only produces a few taels of tea every year. You're lucky." Behind him was a purple-robed old man and a middle-aged man in hemp garments. Both of them looked confident and at ease. They looked like ordinary people who had never practiced Shin skills before. The purple-robed old man casually sat down on an armchair. This old man had round eyes and a leopard's head. His stature was tall and sturdy, and his body was strong and healthy. His face was covered with a curly beard. At first glance, he looked like a fierce Zhang Fei. It seemed as if he did not have the slightest bit of scheming. Anyone who saw him for the first time would think that he was a reckless and impulsive man. If one were to say that this person did things according to his heart and did not consider the consequences, no one would doubt it. In short, he was the most typical symbol of a well-developed but simple-minded person. However, such a person was actually the master of one of the 3 holy lands, the master of the illusory ocean of blood. Huyin Ao Bo. This person could not be underestimated. Anyone who dared to look down on this straightforward man would pay a heavy price. They would either die or eventually serve him. No matter how shrewd, careful, or intelligent they looked, they were no exception. This was not a rare thing. If he was a brainless person, how could he lead one of the three holy lands? The illusory ocean of blood? If one had to give an evaluation, then Huyen Ao Bo was definitely an iconic person who pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger. Mo Wu Dao, you little white face. Hey, you old white face. AI, what should I say about you, old man? 200 years ago, you had the appearance of a white-faced scholar. You're still the same now. Just looking at you gives me a headache. You made yourself look like a little white face. Don't tell me you want to go out and seduce innocent women? You shameless old thing. You haven't used it for 80 to 100 years. Can you still use it? Huyen Alba picked up a cup of tea and said casually. While looking at Mo Wu Dao with disdain, he swallowed the tea in one gulp. Then he let out a comfortable breath. The 10,000-year-old tea tree is indeed extraordinary. It's delicious. Who doesn't know what's going on? Huyen Ao Bo, please don't show your hoodlum face in front of us. Actually, we all know that you're a very sinister old man. Deliberately acting in front of us is just making a fool of yourself. The white-clothed man, Mo Wu Dao, smiled lightly and raised the teapot. You say I'm old white face. How many years has it been? Haven't you been pretending to be a hoodlum and a villain? Actually, everyone is already tired of looking at you. Old Cheer, don't you think so? Who doesn't say so? Everyone knows that the worldly gentleman Mo Wu Dao is a hypocrite. Acting like a white-face scholar and a little white face is just right. It's his true character. But you venerable Ao Ton Huyen Ao Bo is a downright despicable person. Yet, you insist on acting so excessively. You think that just because you're a little taller and deliberately grow a big beard, you can act like a barbarian. In fact, who can you fool with your sinister and despicable face? This I've known for at least 200 years. The hemp-clothed man, who had insulted the two people as soon as he opened his mouth, leisurely sat down and politely picked up a cup of tea. First, he brought it to his nose and deeply sniffed it. Then he gently took a sip, closed his eyes, and carefully savored it. After a while, he sighed and said, "It's really good tea. Good tea." The aroma lingers in the mouth, and the aftertaste is endless. Drinking this wonderful tea and closing my eyes, isn't it better than facing a hypocrite and a despicable person? On his head, he wore a shining golden crown. Under the illumination of the sun, it was as if a golden rainbow had been added to the mysterious peak of the mountain. Shirua Chun, are you a good bird? Huyen Ao Bo said angrily. Golden Crown King Shirua Chun. Ha! You wear a crown every day and act like a king in the supreme golden city. Actually, everyone knows that you used to sell straw sandals many years ago. This hemp-clothed man turned out to be the lord of the supreme golden city of the three holy lands, Golden Crown King Shirua Chun. As for the white-clothed man, he was naturally the lord of the hermitage, the worldly gentleman Mo Wu Dao. In this cold winter weather, the masters of the three great holy lands had actually gathered here. But why? Hearing Huyen Ao Bo's sarcasm, Shirua Chun didn't get angry. He just squinted his eyes and smiled faintly. He shrugged his shoulders and said with interest, "This reminds me an interesting incident many years ago. At that time, I remember that Huyen Ao Bo lost a bet after drinking. I forgot what the bet was. I only remember that he stroked his hair in a flirtatious manner in front of the two of us and said in a coquettish voice, 'This humble one is Huyen Alba. Everyone says that this humble one is very proud. Look, is it really proud? If this matter is publicized in the illusory blood sea, I believe it will be very interesting.' Mimicking the tone of a prostitute, he said these words in a seemingly casual manner. When he finished, he burst out laughing. Mo Wu Dao laughed and clapped his hands. He was overjoyed. Huyen Ao Bo's face instantly turned purple, and he said angrily, 'We have already agreed not to mention this matter again. Why did you say it again? Do you think your words are bullsh asterisk? Mo Wu Dao was overjoyed and said, 'This is retribution.' Who asked you to expose his background and say that he sold straw sandals? You asked for it, so how can you blame anyone else? Isn't that right, old shit? Huyen Aobo snorted and said, "Both of you are not good people. Didn't you collude with each other to make things difficult for me the last time we met? You can't even clean up your own mess, and you still have the cheek to talk about me. This time, we are not deliberately making things difficult for you. We are really curious." Shirua Chan smiled and said, "Huyen Aobo, you old brat. You even asked if Mo Wudao's item could be used. Actually, we have always been curious about where you are depressed. Where is it? But this time, I finally understand. You're already over 300 years old, but you still have a son who is not even 50 years old. You are really depressed where you should be depressed, and erect where you should be erect. I admire you, huh?" Chapter 663. Mo Wudao burst into laughter. He held the tea table with his hands and laughed so hard that he almost couldn't breathe. The most important thing was that when Shirua Chan said this, he had a serious look on his face, and when he said that he had a son in his 50s, his tone was full of amazement. It made people laugh. Huyen Alba's face turned red, and he rubbed his thigh with his thick palm. He said angrily, "What's wrong with this? This proves that the old lady's heart is not old, and she is not old at all. Unlike you guys, did I say anything wrong? I saw that your items are rusty and can't be used anymore. If you're not convinced, take them out and show them. Is it shameful for me to have a son? At least my grave will emit some green smoke after 100 years. What about you guys? Ha ha, green smoke? I think it's green smoke." Shirua Chen rolled his eyes in disdain. "I heard that your precious son was scared by a junior, Jun Moxie, and you still have the face to brag here. Who knows? He might be castrated when he goes out. Aren't you worried that you'll have to watch your son die before you?" Speaking of this, Huyen Alba's face suddenly turned gloomy. "Jun Moxie? Humph. And Mo Wudao, what are you trying to do by asking us to come here in such a hurry? What's the point of saying all this? Is it fun?" Jun Moxie. Mo Wudao smiled elegantly, making his rosy lips and white teeth appear even more prominent. He spoke clearly. "The reason I invited the two of you here today is for this young man." "Ha ha, Mo Wudao. Don't tell me your brain is in knots. He's just an ant-like young man. Is it worth it for the three of us to gather here and discuss with such great fanfare? Are you overestimating this young man? Or are you not taking our identities seriously? Are you getting worse and worse?" Huyen Alba sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw the other two looking at him as if he was an idiot. Jun Moxie, 18 years old this year, the direct descendant of the Tianxiang Empire's Tianxiang City's Jun family, the son of the white General Jun Wuhui. According to the data, this boy had been extremely naughty and mischievous since he was a child. In fact, he had the bad reputation of being the #1 debauchee in Tianxiang during his youth. It could be said that he was extremely unbearable. In fact, his Xian Qi cultivation hadn't even reached grade 4 until last March. However, 3 months later, she had suddenly advanced to the Gold Xian realm. Then, 3 months later, when she had first arrived at the Southern Heaven region, she had already reached the peak of Yu Xian's cultivation. After returning from Tiannan, he had climbed to the peak of Tian Xian's level. This period of time was less than 2 months, and after he returned to Tianxiang City, he suddenly became an expert of Shun Xian in less than a month. Together with the venerable Mei of the Tian Fa forest, he went to the Dongfang family. On the way, he even displayed the cultivation of a supreme martial artist. Although this kind of advancement is terrifying, it is still within the scope of control. However, just a few days ago, the third city lord of the Supreme Golden City, Du Ju, personally tested this boy. His cultivation is at least at the level of a supreme martial artist. When one reaches the level of a supreme martial artist, it is extremely difficult to control him. Shirua Chan slowly explained everything that happened in Jun Moxie's life in detail. Towards the end, his tone became heavy. This young man, from a mere grade 3 to the level of a supreme martial artist, did not even take more than a year. He successfully broke through more than 30 levels and climbed to the ranks of the world's top experts in one fell swoop. Huyan Bo. I don't know if you still think that Junimo Xie is just an ant that can be crushed at any time after listening to this. Do you have a confidence? Anyway, I don't. Huyan Bo's face changed instantly, and he stuttered. According to the intelligence of the illusory blood sea, Jun Moxie has always been intelligent. For the sake of the Jun family, although he has extraordinary skills, he has been enduring humiliation and humiliation ever since he was a child. He has never revealed his powerful strength and only played around with the name of a playboy. The so-called playboy and mischievous playboy is just a facade, but how did he become like this? This is too unbelievable. This is also a coincidence. The Supreme Golden City has just brought in a talented newcomer as a reserve candidate for the war for seizing the heavens. This person is also from Tianxiang City, a direct descendant of the Imperial Tutor's mansion, Li Yuran. This person has been paying attention to Jun Moxie for a long time, and he has never missed any of Jun Moxie's movements. Shiruo Chun said solemnly, and Jun Moxie's previous cultivation cannot be faked at all. From the detailed information provided by Li Yuran, the Supreme Golden City's 9 elders, 5 masters, and 3 city lords have come to the same conclusion. He suddenly raised his head and said word by word. Before this, Jun Moxie was definitely not faking it. Moreover, all of his achievements had only come from this year onwards, one after another. In other words, this person has rushed from the 3rd grade to the Superior Supreme in just 1 year. Mo Wudao's calm face finally became serious. On the other side, Huyan Bo also opened his eyes wide and fell into deep thought. As the leaders of the Holy Lands, these 2 people could be said to have seen a lot of things in their lives. In this world, it was rare for anyone to be more knowledgeable than these 2 people. But when they heard the speed of Jun Moxie's improvement, they were shocked and even horrified. This was not a speed that a human could have. Even the legendary immortals might not be able to achieve this. But this fact was clearly placed in front of them. From the inferior 3rd grade Xianqi to the Superior Supreme in 1 year. The 3 of us used to be proud of our outstanding cultivation speed, and we were also proud that no one could surpass us in our respective fields. Now may I ask you, from the 3rd grade Xianqi to the Superior Supreme, how many years did it take? Shiruo Chan sighed and asked. Mo Wudao's face darkened, and Huyan Bo's eyes flickered, but neither of them spoke, because both of them felt speechless. Compared with such a speed, the speed that they were proud of was not worth mentioning. The 3 of them were about the same age, and their cultivation was also similar. They were confident that they were all geniuses, and their speed of cultivation was one of the things that they were proud of. From nothing to the Superior Supreme, it only took them 50 years. Such a speed of cultivation could basically be regarded as the best in this world. But now, when compared to Jun Moxie's speed, he felt as if he was nothing more than a piece of trash. The thing that they were most proud of had now become the most ridiculous joke. This kind of feeling made the 3 of them very uncomfortable. Even if they knew that Jun Moxie's progress wouldn't last forever, and that it wouldn't prove anything. But the facts are the facts. The facts had proven that someone had managed to accomplish what they had painstakingly struggled for 50 years in a short span of a year. According to my guess, Jun Moxie's miraculous speed of cultivation means that his talent is naturally the best in the world. There is no doubt about this. But this is still secondary. The real key should be his mysterious master. Shiruo Chan made the final decision and said in a deep voice, "Only an extremely powerful master, a mysterious skill that we don't know about, and some other miraculous encounters can create such a miracle. So, the main reason why I invited the 2 of you here today is because of this. We must have an effective strategy to deal with it." Mo Wudao's face darkened, and there was a rare look of worry on his jade-like face. Don't forget that the 3 Holy Lands have worked together to deal with Venerable Mei several times. And now, Venerable Mei is actually in love with Jun Moxie. Everyone knows that we can deal with Venerable Mei no matter what. Because although Venerable Mei is a Xian beast, he is able to see the big picture. For the sake of the war, for seizing the heavens, I believe that he will not go too far. A gentleman can be deceived easily. Then, he continued, and Venerable Mei happens to be a true gentleman. We've taken advantage of this. That's why we've been able to force her into a corner time and time again. Moreover, we don't have to worry about our own safety. Although we admit that we are a little despicable, it is undeniable that this is the Jianghu. But now, the situation has completely changed. Shi Ruo Chun continued. Ever since Venerable Mei joined hands with Jun Moxie, the situation has become messy. Firstly, with the help of Jun Moxie, their power has increased. Secondly, I believe that under the influence of Jun Moxie, Venerable Mei's attacks are becoming more and more vicious. Now, he doesn't seem to care about the war for seizing the heavens anymore. He has become a vengeful person. The number of experts that the three Holy Lands have lost is close to 100. This is a rather terrifying number. Even with the foundation of the three Holy Lands, it is still a little difficult for us to bear the burden. From a certain point of view, Venerable Mei is quite traditional. He would rather be hurt than let the world be trampled on. This is what he pursues, and also the creed of Tian Fa. Therefore, it has become something that we can use to our utmost advantage. Before this has always been his biggest weakness. But this Jun Moxie is different. This person can be said to be an extremely vicious character. This man isn't a gentleman at all. In fact, he's a complete bastard. From Jun Moxie's actions, it can be seen that he is extremely narrow-minded, protective of his own people by nature, vicious and merciless and cruel. He has never repaid enmity with kindness. He has always pursued the principle of an eye for an eye and blood for blood. Towards anyone who stood in front of him, he would kill them all without mercy. He is decisive in his actions, decisive in killing, and never soft-hearted. He is also extremely vengeful and will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. He can be said to be an extremely terrifying young man. Thinking of his terrifying growth speed, this young man is now a great threat to the three Holy Lands. The degree of danger is even higher than that of Venerable Mei. Jun Moxie will be the biggest threat to the three Holy Lands, Mo Wudao said solemnly. Chapter 664. Explode. Third. Fourth. I'm working harder. Shi Ruo Chan sneered. I'm not the only one who said this. If he's given the chance to grow, the destruction of the three Holy Lands will be imminent. Based on his character and style, he will not care about the war for seizing the heavens. In fact, he is a lawless person. The safety of the continent and the people of the world may be able to make everyone worry, but it will not affect him. Because in his eyes, the people of the world are no different from grass. Therefore, his plan to deal with the three Holy Lands is inevitable and predictable. Huyan Ao Bo put away his reckless attitude and spoke in a deep voice with a dignified expression. So, this Jun Moxie can be said to be a natural-born man of the pugilistic world. You should know that these things are not something that can be taught. Even experienced Jianghu man may not be able to reach this level without decades of training and countless lessons of blood and tears. But Jun Moxie seems to be self-taught, and he is even more familiar with it than us who have been in Jianghu for hundreds of years. That's right. Jun Moxie was born to be a Jianghu man, but he was born into a powerful family. But we have to admit that Jun Moxie will bring calamity to our three families in a few years at most, because we have dealt with his women, and not just once. This is an irreconcilable enmity, and for an extremely arrogant and self-centered person like Jun Moxie, it is definitely an irreconcilable enmity. Mo Wudao raised his eyelids and said slowly, "You should know that he dared to go against the Shui Han manor for a mere Guanqing Han, who was not even his woman at that time. This is a lesson for him." His slow words made Shi Ruo Chun and Huyan Ao Bo feel heavy at the same time. Everyone has a weakness, and Jun Moxie is no exception. His weakness lies in his family and his women. This is his biggest weakness. But at the same time, this is the strongest point. Shiruo Chan sighed deeply, because there are many indications that his mysterious master is stationed at the Jun family's residence. And this is also our greatest worry. We don't even know who his master is, what level of cultivation he has, and what level he has reached. We don't even know where he came from. We don't know anything. Shiruo Chan smiled bitterly. So far, we only know that the person who taught such a disciple must be an earth-shattering figure. In that time, 90 experts from the 3 holy lands were suppressed by his aura at the same time. This proves this point. His ability will only be above our estimation, and it will definitely not be any worse. This kind of cultivation, I admit that I don't have it. That's why we can't act rashly, even though we know that a great disaster is right before our eyes. It's not that he can't, but he doesn't dare to. Mo Wudao concluded. In other words, everyone is now in a dilemma. We can't advance, and we can only wait for death if we retreat. Huyin Albo furrowed his thick brows and said unhappily, "Could it be that our 3 holy lands have been forced to this extent by a mere junior? Although we don't want to admit it, this is the truth." Mo Wudao and Shiruo Chan smiled bitterly at the same time. Do you think that the mysterious master of Jun Moxie is from a misty mansion? Huyin Albo suddenly asked cautiously. I don't think so. Maybe the mighty people from the misty mansion can do it, but they haven't shown up for thousands of years. If they can, I'm afraid that they're like the old bones of the misty mansion. Moreover, I'm afraid that even the misty mansion can't achieve such a cultivation speed. And there's only one person who can do it. As far as I know, he is the only one who can achieve such a cultivation speed. A sharp light flashed in Mo Wudao's eyes. Who? The other 2 asked at the same time. The 9 Nether, 14th young master. Mo Wudao said word by word, and his eyes revealed a strong sense of fear. It was as if the name itself had an indescribable magical power. Even he, the Lord of Hermitage, could feel his soul trembling. That's right. Huyan Alboa and Shiruo Chan sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. Only that monster could do this. But the Misty Mansion and the 9 Nether Secret Realm have been in conflict for tens of thousands of years. The battle between the 2 has never happened in the secular world. It will be too unfair if it's just a guess. Besides, the 9 Nether 14th young master might not have the patience to train his disciple. When Huyan Alboa said the name, 9 serenities and 14 masters, he seemed to have a toothache. He clenched his teeth and sucked in a breath of cold air before he managed to finish the name. Anything is possible, Mo Wudao said worriedly. Don't be careless. It's never too much to be careful. But a careless mistake could lead to an irreversible disaster. The 3 holy lands' 10,000 years of foundation will be destroyed. But right now, there's a huge opportunity. If we use it properly, not only can we destroy Jun Moxie and the Venerable Mei, we can also lure out the people behind them, and the 3 holy lands can annihilate them together. Even the 9 serenities and 14 masters might not be able to withstand the joint attack of the 3 holy lands. Shiruo Chan said slowly, with a look of desperation on his face. The other 2 did not speak, but their eyes were fixed on his face. The Jun family's Jun Moxie is about to leave for Blizzard Silver City. I believe that this time, the Venerable Mei will also send out a large number of Tian Fashian beasts in order to help Jun Moxie. Blizzard Silver City will not be able to resist such a force. But this time, after everyone goes, the Jun family's defense will be at an all-time low. Shiruo Chen's eyes flashed with a hint of malice. Ling Ling said so. The summit of the Snowy Mountains is a rare opportunity. And Tianxiang City is another rare opportunity. If you mean, Mo Wudao's eyes lit up, and then he fell into deep thought. He frowned, and his eyes were full of conflict and indecision. The Jun family that Jun Moxie belongs to is now at odds with the Tianxiang imperial family. And the June family's power is not something that a mere imperial family can resist. But this time, we will make an exception and intervene. Among the three princes, the three holy lands can support one of them. Then, we will incite the forces of the secular world and the experts from all over the world to put pressure on the June family. We will test the limits of the June family. When June Moxie and the Venerable may go to Blizzard Silver City, we must make a mess of the June family and let the hidden expert in the June family surface. First of all, even if it doesn't work, the three holy lands can always stay out of it. Secondly, we can also gather our superior forces and take down the forces behind the June family in one fell swoop if we succeed. And that little thief, June, won't be able to enter our eyes, even if he's a peerless genius or a peerless genius. But this time, we can't do it on a small scale. We must gather the most elite forces, and once the attack starts, we must be ready to kill at any time. There must be no mistakes. Shi Ruo Chan raised his head, looked at Huyan Aoba and Mo Wu Dao, and said word by word, "This time, only saint-level experts can succeed. Ordinary so-called experts, even if they are venerables, will only be courting death. If the 9 serenities and 14 masters are in the June family, I'm afraid that even some saints will fall. Everyone must be prepared for this. I believe that this loss will be inevitable." Huyan Aoba and Mo Wu Dao almost stood up in shock at the same time. Could it be? That's right. We, the Supreme Golden City, can send 3 saint-level experts. Let's go all out and participate in this battle. Shi Ruo Chan calculated in silence. He stretched out his white fingers and knocked on the tea table 3 times. It was just 3 light knocks, but the crisp sound echoed in the mountains. He said word by word, 3 saints. Mo Wu Dao stood up with a solemn expression on his face. He paced a few steps, looked up at the sky, and took a deep breath before he forced himself to speak. All right, in order to ensure complete victory, our elusive world of immortals will send 3 saints as well. The illusory blood, C, can also send 3 saints. The 3 holy lands will work together to defeat the enemy. In comparison, Huyan Aoba seemed to be very happy, but the twitching muscles on his face showed that he was not as relaxed as he said. Then, we will send people to Tianxiang to disrupt the situation and force the June family. Strength is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to be resourceful, patient, and able to endure what others can't. You should know that if you're not careful, you'll lose everything. Shi Ruo Chan said calmly. I believe the 2 of you have your own plans. Our illusory blood C will send Zi Jinghong. Although this kid's Xian cultivation wasn't very high, his brain was first-rate. When it comes to scheming, he's even better. Huyan Aoba snorted. Let it bring a few good men to cooperate with us. If it's just to create trouble, it should be enough. Well, then our great golden city will send Liu Ran and a few experts to go there. Liu Ran is a local-born and raised here. Although he is young, he is calm and has the demeanor of a great general. It should be helpful. Shi Ruo Chen smiled. We will discuss this after I return to the palace. In any case, there won't be any delays. Mo Wu Dao said with a dark face. This time, we must eliminate June Mo Xie and Venerable Mei. Chapter 665. Mo Wu Dao said calmly. On the other hand, if we can gain something from this battle, it will be a great harvest. Just the Xian Dan of level 9 Xian Beast alone will not be a small number, and the Xian Dan of the Beast King. All of these will be able to bring the strength of our 3 holy lands to a higher level. Huyan Aoba rolled his eyes and said, if it doesn't work, we might as well do it ourselves. Do it ourselves? How dare you? Shi Ruo Chen looked at him disdainfully. You pretend to be a fool every day. Don't tell me you've become one. Think about the consequences of this. That will only cause the entire Tian Fa forest to go crazy. As long as we don't do anything, we can suppress them to a certain extent. Do you understand, Aoba? Huyan Aoba said angrily. Don't be so sarcastic. Be careful, or I won't be polite to you. Shi Ruochen picked up his teacup and snorted. Be polite? Have you ever been polite to me? For this battle, each family must be led by 2 venerables and at least 50 superior supremes. Let's go to Blizzard Silver City. Mo Wudao looked at the 2 bickering and made the final decision. That's good. Sigh. The 2 Xiao brothers of our Supreme Golden City have been looking for me every day, begging us to send troops to help. How annoying. Finally, we have an explanation. Otherwise, people will say that our Supreme Golden City is heartless. Shi Ruochen heaved a sigh of relief. It seems that the Xiao family and the Han family in Blizzard Silver City are not on good terms with each other. At least, they are not as harmonious as they claim to be. Our Hermitage's Protector Han has strongly requested not to participate in the battle. Haha, it seems that there will be a good show to watch. Mo Wudao smiled and looked towards the north, where Blizzard Silver City was located. The 3 finished their discussion and were about to leave. Before they parted, Huyan Ao Bo suddenly asked, Mo Wudao, how do you judge Venerable Mei's true strength compared to yours? Mo Wudao's eyes flashed as he looked at the Lord of the illusory Blood Sea. Then, he pondered for a moment before replying, We were evenly matched when we fought last time. But I'm sure that she wouldn't be a match for me if we were to go all out. As for after that incident, she was injured and had been silent for nearly 100 years. Who was stronger and who was weaker? What do you think? Huyan Ao Bo's words revealed the meticulous thoughts that he had hidden beneath his boorish face. Hearing Mo Wudao's reply, Huyan Ao laughed heartily and said, If that's the case, then I'll immediately go back and prepare. I believe that in this battle, the 3 holy lands will have a considerable harvest. Then, without any further greetings, his huge body suddenly flew up and slowly pierced through the clouds. His rough laughter was still echoing in the air, but his body had already disappeared in a flash. Shi Ruochen smiled slightly and said, This guy has always been like this. He definitely won't stop unless he takes advantage of something. Brother Mo, do you have anything else to add? As for the matter of Tianxiang City, we must probe it thoroughly before we act. Old Shi, a saint is different from a venerable or even someone above the supreme level. They are all existences that we can't afford to lose. Mo Wudao looked at Shi Ruochen solemnly. If anything goes wrong, you should know what the consequences will be. Big brother knows second brother. Your hermitage can't afford to lose them, but can our supreme golden city afford to lose them? Shi Ruochen laughed, but his laughter was full of gloom. After laughing for a long time, he actually sighed, but we can't afford to wait either. If we continue waiting, wouldn't it be the same as sitting and waiting for death? With this brat, Jun Mo Xie's terrifying rate of improvement, who can guarantee that he won't be able to break through to the venerable realm or even the saint realm? Brother Mo, this is a huge hidden danger. The 3 holy lands have been around for tens of thousands of years, and now they have a great foundation. Please don't destroy them in the hands of the 3 of us. Mo Wudao's face turned gloomy once again. He didn't say anything, but quietly floated up. His slender body was faintly discernible in the sea of clouds. He turned his back to Mo Wudao and rolled up his long sleeves. A teacup on the table a few feet away suddenly jumped up. Old Shi, I advise you to drink another cup of tea. You and I will part ways here. We will meet again someday. Same to you. Shi Ruochen caught it, laughed loudly, and drank it in one gulp. When he looked at the clouds again, Mo Wudao's figure had already disappeared. Shi Ruochen stood alone in the clouds, and as he looked at the surrounding clouds, he could not help but sigh softly. The clouds instantly enveloped the entire high platform, and the sigh continued to reverberate. However, Shi Ruochen's figure had already disappeared in the clouds, as if he had never been there. On the towering peak, there was only a huge stone tea table and 3 exquisite armchairs. On the table, a small teapot was quietly placed on top. The 3 teacups were arranged in a triangular shape quietly, until the end of time, That night, the people from the three Holy Lands were divided into two groups, and they headed north. One to Blizzard Silver City, and the other to Fragrant Sky City. The next morning, in the Tian Fa forest, Mei Shui-yin was dressed in a snow-white robe. Her pretty face was filled with endless killing intent. She looked at the black mass of flying Xian beasts in front of her and slowly walked in front of the formation. Her phoenix-like eyes were filled with dignity and solemnity. With a high and mighty pressure, she asked in a deep voice, "Is everyone ready?" The 9 beast kings at the front of the line opened their mouths at the same time. "Everyone is ready. There are 1,500 flying Xian beasts and 459 shape-shifted beast kings. Everyone is ready, and we can move at any time. Boss, please give the order." "Very good." Mei Shui-yin let out a long breath. She looked at the sky with a complicated look and said in a low voice, "We will definitely face the 3 Holy Lands when we go to Blizzard Silver City this time. The 3 Holy Lands have many experts, and their strength is even more tyrannical. They have been eyeing Tian Fa for a long time, and this time we will definitely face an unprecedentedly fierce battle. Even I don't have the confidence to come back alive, so all of you must be prepared. Who cares about the 3 Holy Lands? Let's *CK them up." Bear Mountain roared. "So what if they are strong? We are not afraid." Long Crane's eyes were full of fighting spirit. "Right? What's there to be afraid of? Let's *CK them up." All the humanoid beast kings roared at the same time, and a ferocious atmosphere suddenly formed. Before they even set off, the group was already filled with the smell of blood. Each and every one of these beast kings had fought their way up in Tian Fa forest step by step, adhering to the most cruel principle of natural selection in Tian Fa forest. Which one of them hadn't been through hundreds and thousands of battles? So what if the enemy was strong? Just kill them. Just fight to the death. This was the only understanding these beast kings had towards battle. Moreover, they had just obtained a huge breakthrough, and all of them felt that they were extremely strong. If they were to randomly summon any one of them and let them sweep through the 3 Holy Lands, they would probably not hesitate to do so. And they would even charge forward confidently, smashing everything from north to south. "Very good. Take the Ant King, Wolf King, Bee King, and Rat King, and set off immediately. Divide into 10 echelons and set off in sequence. The first stop is Tianxiang City." A cold light flashed in Mei Shui-yin's eyes as she waved her slender hand. Long Crane let out a long cry that shook the 9 heavens. Then he suddenly soared into the sky, and with a schwa sound, he transformed into a huge, snow-white crane with a wingspan of over 20 meters. It was as big as a pung, and its wings covered the sky. Then it flapped its wings as it soared into the sky. Mei Shui-yin's white robe flashed, and she did not seem to move, but her slender figure had already soared into the sky and stood proudly on Long Crane's shoulder. Long Crane flapped his wings and took the lead. Mei Shui-yin's white robe fluttered, and she stood proudly. The oncoming wind blew her hair, revealing her beautiful face. Right now, it was cold, and there was only a trace of passion and longing in her eyes. A thick murderous aura rose from the Tian Fa forest. 100 giant cranes soared into the sky and followed behind Long Crane as they flew in a majestic manner. The second group was a group of rocks, and Bear Mountain's majestic body sat on the back of the first rocks, soaring into the sky. Behind him, there was a large group of strong men, all standing on the backs of rocks, all dressed in bridal outfits, and their red robes fluttered in the wind, dyeing the entire sky red. The third and fourth groups were the crane race, and the fifth group was still the rocks race. The sixth, seventh, and eighth groups were the eagle people, with the eagle king transforming into black lightning, leading the way. As for the ninth and last group, they were from the Condor tribe. The Condor king flew high into the heavens, leading his brothers in hot pursuit. On the Xian continent, an unprecedented hurricane suddenly blew. A total of thousands of beast kings came out of Tian Fa, causing an earth-shattering tremor. On the way to Tianxiang, Mei Shuiyan's white robe fluttered, her long hair flying in the wind. She released her aura as the king of the Xian beasts, causing the entire world to be filled with an icy coldness. That was a bone-chilling coldness, mixed with the unique pride and cruelty of the Tian Fa forest, dominating the world, ruling the world. Whether it was intentional or not, all the beasts in the path of this group were met with a calamity. The first to bear the brunt was Tiannan City. Whether it was the Xian beasts, domestic animals, or even the horses in the army camp, all of them suddenly trembled and fell to the ground. All the animals were the same, their limbs twitching, their bodies convulsing, and their mouths foaming. This kind of terrifying aura was too concentrated, and it was not just one or two, but a shocking number of thousands. Just like that, how could ordinary beasts withstand it? Even if it was just a glimpse, it was still unbearable. At this moment, it was already not bad that they were not crushed to death on the spot, and only lost control for a moment. As for the weaker chickens, ducks, and geese, they were directly flipped over. General Wan Wuyin, who was in charge of Tianan City, although his Xianqi cultivation was not high, he had a certain level of attainment. He had just climbed out of his bed, and before he could even put on his clothes, he felt a terrifying aura enveloping the sky and earth, and he almost fell to the ground. At the same time, the people in the backyard were shouting and horses neighing, and the whole city was in chaos. I'm still working hard. My fingers are a little cramped and sore. This kind of feeling, I believe my brothers and sisters who have been typing for a long time can understand. From early morning until now, I have not rested. I don't know if I can make it to the 5th chapter, but I hope that my brothers and sisters can give me some strength. Monthly votes. Smash the 5th chapter. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.